county level data for
Well, that's a good
migrations.
question. I'm maybe answering myself. I want to go to my source,
Yeah.
our source,
Yeah.
and see if they have anything first,
'Cause
and then go from there. Because I think
Yeah.
that's data that's good for us and made for whatever purposes, but also
Yeah.
for when we argue the fact with legislators or PSRC. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think PRCC has some net migration stuff.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll see what I can get out of
but that'd be interesting. You're the one.
them. Only for a short period.
Yeah. We'll shift around. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go.
So did
Get a
you
bite.
hit 70?
Yes.
You finally hit it?
I finally hit it. Today's the day.
Man,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe
Oh,
it.
did it?
Such a young guy.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Such a young guy, 669.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Now the big 7.
Oh yeah, you're now going down.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't confuse it. I think it's a little ways to go.
Only one day.
You are now live.
Well, good evening. My name is Steve Worthington. I'm the mayor of the city of University Place, and it's my honor to call together the regular meeting of the University Place City Council for October 16th, 2023. Meeting's now in order. And let's start with a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Keel.
Present.
Councilmember Wood.
Present.
Councilmember McCluskey.
I'm here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Belisi.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Present.
And Mayor Worthington.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember McCluskey, would you do the honors and lead us in the flag?
Thank you. Everyone stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Councilmember McCluskey. I appreciate that. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor, this is Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Councilmember Belisi, I second.
Thank you, Councilmember Belisi. We have a second. Are there any objections to the approval of the agenda tonight as distributed? No objections. The agenda is approved as distributed. Brings us to presentations, and this evening we have a presentation having to do with the Tacoma Water purveyor for us, which is to say the Tacoma Public Utilities. And if you would like to come up and introduce yourself, you have our attention.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Worthington and members of the City Council. My name is Latasha Wortham.
Could you talk into the mic, please?
Oh, sorry about
Closer,
that.
just pull it closer.
You may want to move the mic a little closer to
Okay.
you. It has a relatively short range.
Is that better?
It is.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Worthington and members of the City Council. My name is Latasha Wortham. I'm the Deputy Director for Customer Services and External Affairs for Tacoma Public Utilities. And I thank you so much for your time this evening. I think most of you have probably heard at this point that West Rock, which was Tacoma Water's largest water user in our system, recently announced that they were no longer going to operate here in Tacoma. And they were a third of the usage of Tacoma Water. And so it has some significant impacts both on the system and on rates for our water usage. And we wanted to come to inform you about what's happening so far and what considerations are being made by the Public Utility Board and eventually by the Tacoma City Council regarding rates for water usage. In University Place, as you know, Tacoma Public Utilities through Tacoma Water supplies the water usage and the electric usage for your constituents here in University Place. And so we want to make sure that all of your constituents are aware, that you all are aware, and that if there are public opportunities to both with the Public Utility Board as well as with the Tacoma City Council for the council and constituents to weigh in on the potential for the rate increase. And so we wanted to be sure you had all of that information. And I have with me today Jody Collins, who is the manager for, I'm going to get her title wrong, financial stewardship, is that right?
That's
okay.
right.
I thought I was going to mess that up, for Tacoma Water. And she's going to share with you the process that Tacoma Water has undergone to determine what the rate increase will need to be in order for the operations for clean delivery of water continues for Tacoma Water. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jody, and she has a PowerPoint presentation that she'll share with you. And I think that it will be projected for Councilmember Keel as well.
Thank you, Latasha. Mayor Worthington, members of the City Council, thank you for having us here this evening. I'm going to start with an overview slide and kind of, we'll be going into some details here, but this is the high level of our story tonight. On August 1st, West Rock announced that they were closing the paper mill, effective September 30th. So this happened really abruptly with very little notice. This is an unprecedented occurrence. This isn't a loss of just any customer for Tacoma Water. They were by far our largest customer. Their operations provided about 7.3% of our water sales revenue. This is nearly as much revenue as the next 19 customers combined. So once West Rock is gone, our customer base is very diversified. As Latasha shared, we're by far our largest user, consuming about a third of our total water use in 2022. This is the equivalent of about 100,000 homes. For scale, we have about 96,000 single-family homes in our territory, so that would need to be more than double to make up for the West Rock usage. This loss requires that we look at the way that our system is set up. We created a team back in 2021. We've always known that there was a risk that if West Rock did close, it would be a major impact to us and our customers. This team came together. There were engineers, operations folks, financial folks, and we all came together and identified all of the potential impacts of a West Rock closure. Of course, financial was the number one, the thing that we would have to address first. We also have issues and questions about the hydraulics of our system. How are we going to keep it flowing through the pipes? You can't have stagnant water. It's our mission to provide clean, reliable water and keep our customers safe. And then the other one that rose to the top was the water quality. So these are the issues that we're facing. We still have to maintain the whole system. Just because West Rock is leaving doesn't mean we can just cut off that pipe or just leave it there. We have to address that usage. There are other customers down in the port. Certainly no one that takes that amount of water, though. And then another question that we've got, and one of the things, of course, we're thinking about is how about reserves? Tacoma Water has been really responsibly spending down reserves to keep the rate adjustments gradual and low. This is going to cost us additional reserves all this time while we're trying to figure out, what we're going to do and how we're going to make up for this loss. So although those reserves are helping us manage through this near term, we are going to have to address the longer term loss through a rate adjustment. I've been modeling this every year since I've been in Tacoma Water. So since 2008, every single year we've modeled what does the loss of this customer look like. And every single time it requires a rate adjustment. So with that, we'll go into a little more detail. So this is a snapshot from our long-range financial model. And this shows, that top graph shows our operating fund cash balance. And you can see, so first off, what we're projecting here is a loss of between $6 and $8 million between, even though West Rock said they were going to close on 9/30, their water greatly reduced on 9/6. So we had an even greater loss than we were expecting. So in this period between early September and the end of 2024, we're expecting to lose about $8 million in revenue. If you look at we do take a long-term view. That's the only responsible way to manage a water utility. You can see that very quickly we run out of cash. And then I think many of us understand that as soon as you start running out of cash, then making up for that cash becomes much harder. The rate increases the longer that we wait, the higher they need to be to get back up to normal. The bottom, we include that bottom snapshot. That shows that we already have rate increases projected for our base case. So the base case was before West Rock closed. That was our expectations. So you can see we already, for 2023 and 2024, we did implement rate adjustments of 4%, and then we're projecting 3.5 in 2025 and 2026. So when you see up above and you see that cash drop, that's even with those rate adjustments. So this helps illustrate the need to do something quickly and the need to respond in 2024 and not wait. Please feel free to, yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. just a quick one, and the reserves that you'll be using, was it projected, was it modeled out to use those reserves specifically in case these folks went out of business or closed their business, I should say? Or was it intended for something else that now you don't have reserves for that? That's what I think you understand what I'm saying. Right?
Terrific question. We do have a planned use for those reserves. We have to keep a minimum level. We have policy levels, and that helps us with our credit ratings. So we don't want to go below the policy levels. Beyond that, we did have some extra reserves that we built up in the early 2000s when we had significant new wholesale customers coming in, connecting to our system. Everyone thought we were going to sell a lot more water back then with conservation, with maybe lower growth than we all thought. That hasn't come to fruition. So we built up some reserves. So we've been planning to spend those. There is a plan. That's how we keep these. See how smooth the rate adjustments are? Our capital goes up and down. Other expenses go up and down. But we try our best to keep them smooth for our customers because I know at home it's a lot easier if I can budget out and plan. So that's how we use those reserves in those years when we need them. In 2030, we have another contract revenue that we know we're losing. It's just part of the contract. The contract is sunsetting. So that we're going to be losing $6 million a year. So we've planned for that because we know that's happening. So we've been able to kind of slowly spend down the reserves to address that. The other thing is in 2033 or 34, we see debt service spikes. We've got some bonds that we'd issued that the principal starts coming due. And so we've also, you don't see a spike in the rates. We see a spike in our expenses, but we're able to handle that through reserves. Okay. If we were to spend all of our reserves right now to address the West Rock issue, then we've got those two issues that'll be coming up not very far from now. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Ms. Collins, before we get going, I think Councilmember Fleming may have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Jody, thanks for being here tonight. Every time I hear these, I learn something new and different. Water is already expensive for the consumer, and now we're looking at even more rate hikes. So, when I hear from TPU examples of when they add more customers, rates have to go up. You lose customers, your rates go up. Is there an example in your modeling when the consumer gets a break on the water rates where the rates may stay even or go down?
It's a great question. I will say costs go up for the utility just like they do in our homes. We have fuel for our vehicles that have to go out and maintain the system. We have to pay people, and we pay them a living wage. We have labor unions. We have contracts that go up. Our rent goes up. Our utilities goes up. What we're trying to do, because we firmly believe that the way that we can help our customers is first maintaining the system so that we don't have major main breaks or issues in our system. So we maintain that. And then we also have to be sure that the water is clean and reliable. We have regulatory mandates that we have to follow. I think we built the filtration facility back not very long ago. That was in 2015. We worked very hard to keep the rate increases as low as we could, but that's an expensive project and a whole new addition to our system. I also have some slides coming up where I'll show you a little bit of how our expenses play out and what they look like. See how they were building up. And you see back in 2005, so I started with the city in 2004, so at that time, we didn't have very many reserves. There's actually, I don't know if any of you know Linda McCrae, she was our superintendent, and at that time there was a memory of being concerned about making payroll, about actually that our paychecks wouldn't get cashed. So that's not very long ago, and it's close in the memory still. So you can see, where we started. I told you a little bit about those wholesale connections and the system development charges. That was about $40 million that we collected in 2006, 2007, and that time period. You can see that build up. We actually set those aside. We didn't recognize the revenue at the time, so that we can use those to help with debt service coverage, to boost that up and recognize them as revenue during times when we're issuing more bonds, when we're getting more higher debt. So we've been kind of hanging on to those a little bit. Back in 11 and 12, that's when we started this whole idea of gradualism. We knew that we were going to have to build this filtration facility, $200 million facility. At the same time, we had a regulatory mandate to cover all of our reservoirs. So at the same time, we needed to build a $30 million reservoir. That's a lot. It's a lot of capital. It's a lot of debt. It's also the filtration facility is a whole nother part of the system. We have to have operators up there 24 hours a day. The watershed, I don't know if you've ever been on a tour of the watershed. I bet you, Latasha, we could work something out if you're interested. It is a beautiful place, but we have inspectors out there that have to take care of all that land. There are people there all the time making sure that the water is safe and clean. So anyway, at that time we were building up. We had some planned rate adjustments, smaller ones. When I was modeling it, it was in the double digits. It was 18 to 20% rate increases, which is crazy. So we had a series of smaller rate increases so that we could build up into that. So we were starting to build up the reserves. At that time, in 2008 and 9, and even into 10, we got the ARA funding, the American Recovery and something else, the RR Act. I can't remember the other R. But we received some low-interest loans, a series of low-interest loans between 0.5 and 1.5% interest rate to help us pay for the filtration facility and the reservoir. At the same time, we had issued bonds because we figured we were going to need to use bond funding. We didn't know those loans were going to become available. So that allowed us it took us longer to spend those bond funds. And so at that time, we're building reserves. So that's where you can see sort of the buildup. And then you can see we have planned to spend almost $90 million between 21 and 2024. Our entire capital plan is funded through reserves. These are ways that we're trying to keep the rates lower. When you don't have to issue new bonds, that means we don't have additional debt service, and we're using reserves. But we're using them, trying to maintain them. So remember I told you about in the early 2030s? So you can kind of see this gradual spend down. So this is the reserves, and that's the first place you go. All right, this mill closed. What about reserves? So we're like, well, we're already spending about $8 million right now in the near term. We have a plan for the rest. And if we don't recover that, we've got to figure out another way. This is a view that we use. If you, so each grid, each column is a month, and then you can see the sort of gray kind of fat line up and down in there. That's our average day demand. So every single day there's a point on there between 2014 and 2022. So you can kind of see how low it goes historically, how high it goes. Similar pattern, right? We have seasonality. People use more water in the summer. So you can kind of see that. And then the blue line is for 2023. So you can see it, pretty normal year. Up until, if you see in May, so you'll kind of see in the blue, there's this drop in May. That was every year the pulp mill would have a shutdown, like clean, shut everything down. So we would see this drop. It's interesting to note that. You wouldn't expect a pulp mill that was going to announce a closure on August 1st to have a shutdown. So that was part of one of the things that perplexed us a little bit there. Then if you go back and start following the line again, and you'll see in September, you see about September 6th, you see the blue line just drop. And you can see right now we're lower than we've ever seen, right? You can see the the purplish line, that's our projection for the remainder of this year. And then the green line on the bottom is what our usage is without West Rock. It's pretty dramatic. We're going to have a whole new way of operating here. Our engineers, our operational folks have all come together, and we actually stood up our ICS, our emergency management system. We meet every week and talk about what's going on, what can we do, what do the meters look like, what are the hydraulics looking like, what about the water quality we're testing. So this is a all hands on deck, treating it as an emergency because it is for us. Okay, so we've talked about reserves. We've talked about, why it's such a big impact. It's a very fair question. Why can't you cut your costs? I can tell you sincerely, as a person who's been working at water for many years, we have a very lean budget. We take our mission very seriously, and we do not raise rates lightly. I promise you that. So I'm going to kind of show you some of this, and please, again, ask me if you have any questions. This is a picture of our actual 2022 expenses, and this is these are some of the big categories. You can see, and I'm going to focus on, first, I wanted to talk a little bit about why our costs really don't go down, why most of our costs are fixed. About 95% of them are fixed in the short run. You can see that our debt service is about 25% of our budget. That's paying for past capital expenditures. We have $1.2 billion of water infrastructure. To replace that, it's $8 billion. So this is that debt service. You're going to see that in a utility our size. Very capital intensive. The next part of the 15% for assessments, those are the charges that we have for our share of city services, legal, HR, finance, IT, things like that. And then another 15% is taxes, just like on our paychecks and at home we pay taxes. So does the utility. So about 15% is taxes. So those three items are about 55% of the expenses that we had. Okay. So right then, there's really not much we can do about that. Another category that you saw was supply, services, and other charges, and then personnel. I'm going to talk about personnel in just a moment. But so you've got debt service, taxes, assessments, and personnel, and then what's left, everything else, is in the supply, services, and other charges. And this would be the area where you would look for cost efficiencies, right? Maybe there's some control here. As we start looking in this category, there's part of it, we have two systems. And part of for our second supply system, the debt service that we pay isn't considered debt service, it's considered an operating expense. So we've got about $3.8 million, another one that's an external obligation that's fixed. We have rent. Our insurance has been going up every single year. It's almost doubled, I would say, over the last 5 years. It's unbelievable. So there we got 39% of that 14%. Then we look at, all right, so another 40% is fleet. Think about the fuel. Fuel prices haven't gone down. Maintaining the fleet is very important. So we have a pretty large chunk expenditure there. It takes yes.
So thank you, Ms. Collins. So just a quick question. Are we looking in the numbers you're giving us, is this the water division or Tacoma Public Utilities as an entire entity?
Great question. Just the water division.
Okay. Thank you.
So we are required, so we have to be standalone funds.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to benefit each other.
Yeah.
So we all pay for our own costs through our expenses. We are a cost of service utility, so we only charge what it costs to operate.
All right. Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. On the taxes, is that, can you break it up to how much of the 15% is federal, state, county, if there's any county or local taxes that 15% goes to?
Yes, I can. Most of it is either the City of Tacoma gross earnings tax.
Say that one more time?
A lot of it is the City of Tacoma gross earnings tax. That's an 8%.
Gross earning tax.
Gross earnings tax, and that is 8% on our gross earnings.
That goes to Tacoma.
That goes to the City of Tacoma.
8%.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And then we have, for the state, we have 5.029% state utility tax. We also have the City of University Place utility tax. And the rest are very, pretty small.
Okay.
You know, we have a B&O tax on certain types of revenues.
Right. Okay, so it's the 8 and the 5.5, that's your big bites. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So let's just kind of skip down. We've got about $3.1 million left here that pays for everything else, such as all of our operating, maintenance, expense, supplies, professional services, computer technology support, software and licensing, employee training and development. All that is in the $3.1 million. And so if we think about $101 million loss over the period, $3.1 million, and then where do you save in that, right? Do we have no training for our people? Do we, we have to buy some software? It's relatively small. Okay. And then there's personnel, and that's about 31% of our budget, or actually our actual expenses in 2022. You can see, we wanted to sort of show you the work. So if you look on the chart on the right, you can see, again, at the end of 2022, we wanted to have a apples-to-apples comparison. We had 281 employees. Of that, 148 are in the skilled trades. Those are the folks that are out there working on our system. We have about 40 that are working on the planning and the engineering. About 39 that are working on up in the watershed, ensuring the water quality, the treatment, the regulatory. And then you can see there's some smaller numbers of folks that are dedicated to safety, financial management and strategy, management team. I think this illustrates sort of where the people are, and there's just not a lot of room there. I'm going to show this next slide that we'd never looked at this way. A person on my team and I said, let's try plotting these together and see what it looks like. And I found it startling. So that top line is our growth in infrastructure. That's the original cost, plant, and service. So you're not seeing, inflation or anything like that. You're seeing the original cost. And you see the jump in 2005 when we added a whole nother supply pipeline, a whole second line. And then again, you can see in 2015 when we added the filtration facility, these big jumps. It's grown, our infrastructure's grown nearly 200% since 2004. And then if you look at the bottom line, those are our FTEs, those are our employees. And you can see it's really quite flat. It's only 12% change over that time. And in fact, you can see that in 2022, we only had a few more people than we had in 2008. So that's another place that sometimes people might go to. What about people? Can you do with less? And I say no. I'm going to pass this over to Latasha.
Thank you. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about us trying to engage stakeholders such as yourselves and your constituents as we talk through this, right? We want people to understand that it's a large system. It doesn't make changes very easily or very quickly. So as Jody talked about studying the system, trying to figure out what efficiencies we can maybe make down the road is still a very long way out before we would recognize any of those savings. And then we want people to understand that though, right? Because a lot of people go, well, if you lost a large customer, maybe that means our rate should reduce. And in fact, it's kind of the opposite because you have less money coming into the system. You still have the same piping, the same water, and we need people to really understand that as they're thinking about what their rates will be going forward. And so we've been going out into the community and talking to folks, making sure that they understand, and or if they have questions, they know how to reach out to us and how to talk to the Public Utility Board as well as the City Council as we move forward with decision making on the rates process. It's never fun to be out in the community talking about increasing people's rates, right? I pay TPU rates. I don't like when my rates increase. I don't like coming to the City Council to talk to you about increasing rates. But the fact of the matter is we need to ensure that we're having clean, reliable services. And in order to do that, we need to lay out to people why we need the rate increase, not just that we want to have one, because we certainly don't want to have one. But we want to ensure that they understand why we need to have one. And so we've been out to neighborhood councils, we've been out to community groups, we've done business outreach through our account executives for many of our commercial businesses, and we're still doing that right now. I've been around to a number of the city councils. The city of Fife is our next largest user, and they are a wholesale customer of ours, so they distribute their own water, but they buy all of the water from us. And so it's a large, they are a large user, and so went to talk to the city of Fife. Of course, I'm here to talk to the city of University Place because, again, you're one of the municipalities that we serve water to. We also serve a number of places in the county, so we've been talking to the county council. We have a meeting on the book, I believe, tomorrow with the county executive to talk to him more about what the potential rate increases will be. And so I just wanted to kind of lay out to you that we are trying to get out into the community because we don't take it lightly. Like Jody said, when we're out thinking about increasing rates, we want all of our customers and our constituents to know how they can have a voice in this process. I recently started a new position. I think you probably heard it when I introduced myself. I was promoted to Deputy Director of Customer Experience and External Affairs. So it's very important to me that customers actually have a positive experience and no one is thinking, oh, yay, a rate increase. But we want them to understand and feel like that someone tried to really bring their voice into it as we were thinking about this and understand how people are feeling. Are we getting to BCAP or should I talk about that now? Okay. So what we've been out telling folks is that for residential customers, an 8% rate increase is about $3.65 a month. And so, again, no one likes a rate increase. $3.65 a month is a lot to some people. And we do recognize that there are low-income folks who this will be not a very good thing for, right? And so what we've done is through our Bill Credit Assistance Program, we've ensured that we will make our BCAP customers whole. So anyone who qualifies for our low-income programs and anyone who is receiving direct service from us, so anyone in the city of University Place, for instance, that is considered low income can apply to be a part of that program, and we will cover that additional $4 a month for them. So they will not get that rate increase. So we are trying to protect the most vulnerable people as we increase rates within our residential system. And so we just wanted you to know that we are really out explaining that to people because there is that concern that there are low-income folks that could really be struggling to pay even $3.65 a month. And we do understand that and recognize that.
Ms. Wortham, what's the qualification of the income qualifier? Do you recall offhand?
Yes, Jody will.
60% of the average median income, or average median
area median.
Area. Thank you.
You said 50%?
60.
60%.
Yes.
Okay, 60. Thank you.
And in addition, any customers who are seniors or those who are disabled can also apply and receive a 35% reduction through our our programs as well, and they can either be in BCAP if they're at 60% of AMI, or they get the discount at 35%, whichever one is more beneficial to them. They're welcome to take advantage of.
Councilmember Belisi, did you have a question?
Not so much a question, but a clarification. You were indicating 365 rate increase, but I believe that's for the city of Tacoma residents, not University Place.
I apologize.
Yeah.
You're correct. It's
yeah.
outside of the city is a little bit more because our infrastructure, as you get further out, it's a little more expensive to serve and more cost of service. And so I do apologize.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification for those that are listening.
Thank you.
Also, the income eligibility, low income eligibility is great if you are a homeowner and have a meter, but what about the seniors and low income that live in apartment complexes that get assessed a monthly charge from the owner of the building? They don't qualify, and I believe we may find that a lot of our seniors are living in rental situations where they don't receive the bill directly for water. So have you taken that into consideration? Is there a way for a senior or low income apartment renter to receive this, because they will be receiving this $4.84 credit, this big hike in their water bill, or rent payment because the owner is paying more money?
Yes, and that is one of the ongoing issues that we're constantly trying to address, because, in order for us to give, we can't give gift of public funds, as you all know, right? It has to be low income or infirmed or disabled folks that we are able to assist, and we have to be able to prove that. And so in order to do that, we would need to actually have the person have a meter. So you'd have to be paying the bill directly in order to get that incentive, because unless there were some other way to verify that they are paying the exact amount as a low income person, which without a meter, it's not possible for us to verify.
Well, at 60% AMI, many of your residents may very well already be receiving disability income, a disability check, or they may be on subsidized payment where the property owner is receiving a subsidy from a nonprofit to offset the cost of the rent. So it would seem to me that that would be evidence enough to prove eligibility for that particular unit. When we're to think about it.
Right. The hard part is figuring out if they're not individually metered, which amount of money belongs to which person.
I mean, that would be a start to at least for the property owner, particularly if they have a number of units in their apartment complex that are low income.
And just so you know, this has been an ongoing issue that we've been working a lot with housing authorities in particular, because that is an issue that we have when it comes to, then they're serving low-income populations. And so trying to figure out if there's a way that we can figure out what we call kind of a split incentive, right? Because you have a property owner, if they get the incentive, then how are we ensuring that it's being passed down to the customers who are actually the low-income folks, and that's the harder part to verify.
Right, but you're having to do some sort of audit already to ensure that those that are applying are qualified and not forging documentation to you. So I understand it's another layer of personnel, but I'm just putting it out there.
We completely agree with you. You're absolutely right about that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilmember Fleming, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Latasha, thank you for being here tonight, too. In your comments, you noted that you've been out doing community outreach and talking to HOAs and neighborhoods and all that. How many have you done in University Place?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. I don't have that number for you, but I will find out for you. So we know that we've reached just about 400 individual customers at this point. And I can certainly get the breakdown of where those customers are located for you. I'm sorry that I don't have that for you tonight.
Would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to send that back to you.
I believe Councilmember Wood has a question as well.
A couple of questions, Mayor. Thank you. First one, you just say on your documentation here, sometime in 2024. That's actually kind of a broad range. Do you have a target month or window that you're looking to do this in?
We're recommending January 1st.
January 1st. Okay. Second question is...
Councilmember, can I just add a little bit more color to that answer,
Please.
actually? So we're recommending January 1st. our Public Utility Board will make a decision on when it actually goes into effect. There are a few other dates that we typically do increases that they could also consider. So that is our recommendation, and oftentimes they do follow the recommendation, but sometimes they don't. So it could be, in the springtime as well, just depending on the appetite for the Public Utility Board to institute the rate increase at the beginning of the year.
Okay, and then just, this may be a bit too much detail for, that you would have the answer for right now, but how competitive are your rates compared to other utilities as far as especially business customers? Because it seems to me if you've just lost a major business customer, you'd want to attract a new one. And will increasing the rates actually be a disincentive for a new business to come in, either in the port or somewhere else to?
That's a great question.
It is a great question. There's kind of two questions. So we do have a chart, I apologize, I should have added it to the appendix, that shows where our rates are relative to our peer utilities, and we're actually quite low. We're quite a bit lower than Seattle.
About 25% lower
Yeah.
than Seattle, for instance.
Seattle, Bellevue, and Portland. We're much lower than all three of those major utilities.
Even with our suggested increase.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're proud of that. The other, would you repeat the second part? I'm so
The
sorry.
second part was, if you increase the rates, would that be a disincentive for a new business to come in and actually start?
It's a good question. Our development folks, Michael Katsy is out working hard. They're talking to new customers coming in. Our rates are still very low and competitive with our peers, so don't see that as a deterrent. What I do see as attractive is the reliability of our water, the quality of our water, the quality of our service. I think that we have a lot. All of our utilities, as well, power is quite low as well. So we have a really thriving place for businesses to come. So it's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Keel, I believe, has a question for us online. Councilmember Keel, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you both for the presentation. I don't envy you at all, having to go out and give this type of news to everyone. And I'm sure you are at the pointy end of the spear for the utility as this goes. And I hope that, I've got a couple of questions and just some observations that are going to be just as pointed, but not personal, if you can take it that way. So I understand all the data and how you presented it. Just for a matter of reference, I spent 11 years working in Seattle Public Utilities as an IT person, doing all that back-end work around bills and infrastructure and all of that stuff. I also spent, Tasha, as you know, a couple of years in the city of Tacoma, doing the same thing for utilities. So, and I was the guy that helped fix all of the SAP problems that was going on a few years back. So I get what you're saying. I actually went out to the watershed. I've been out there. I've seen those nice wooden pipes both in Seattle and Tacoma. So I get all of that. I'm still struggling with like zero movement on personnel, zero movement or very little movement on some of these other kinds of things. And I get the rates are low, and I get the profits or margins are really, really thin, but it's a hard sell, at least in my mind, to people when we say, well, gee, your rate's going to have to go up, and even though it's only $3 or $4 and some cents a month, and not have any give on the utility side, and particularly when we hear, 8% of our taxes goes to the city of Tacoma for revenue stuff. I mean, we have, when it comes to the city council, Tacoma City Council, we're at a dais just like they're at their dais. We understand, kind of how the stuff works, and it just doesn't feel like that there's much give on the city's part to the ratepayer to help alleviate the issue that we didn't cause. You know, it's the cost of doing business, right? And you're in a, albeit government, you're in a business and you lost a major customer, and now the remaining customers feels like we're bearing the full brunt of all of that, and that just doesn't feel good.
Thank you, Councilmember Keel. Anything else, or is that, did you complete what you had to say?
I did. I was hoping if I can get some type of response to that.
Certainly.
If there is one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Kill. It's good to hear you. I'm sorry that I didn't get to see you and give you a hug tonight, but I'm glad that you are here, and thank you for those words. I think we completely understand your point of view and where you're coming from on this, especially given that, you know, anytime there's a rate increase, especially if it's due to something that was really out of the control of customers, there's always these type of questions. So completely understand that. And what I will say in terms of staffing or other gives that we might be able to do, Jody showed you a little bit about how lean we are. And I think it's harder to explain to people that it actually may be more work for our employees now that we have this customer who is left, because there's more maintenance that has to be done, potentially flushing of the water and things that we didn't currently have to do because West Rock was using so much of the water, right? So if we start to reduce staffing levels, what ends up happening is we don't have enough staff to actually do the maintenance work that needs to be done or other projects that need to get done. And in addition, when people start to feel overworked, then we lose the good employees that we have. And we don't want to see water quality or customer quality reduce because we have to make some of those choices. And so as we look at what is available, you know, as I mentioned down the road, we're evaluating the system. There may be other opportunities to reduce some things, but at the moment, we don't believe that it would be best for the system or for our customers if we started to reduce staffing levels or other projects at this time. Jody, did you have anything to add to that?
I do. Thank you, Latasha. I do want to add that we have been looking through all of our capital projects. The engineers have evaluated nearly 200 projects to see, can we defer this? Do we still need to do this? They came up with about 6 that they thought they could defer. Doesn't mean that we don't do them eventually, so they're on that plan still, but able to defer them. They came up with 4 new ones that we're going to have to do up at the chemical feed. This is we've only known about this for a couple of months now. There's going to be a lot of evaluation, a lot of circling back to see. They've been talking about, can we mothball one of the reservoirs? So we are very actively looking for ways that we can still maintain a strong system, safe water for our customers, and maybe find some cost efficiencies. So we are ongoing, continuing to look for those. So we commit to that. We are also looking for additional revenues. We have a number of wholesale customers that we've been talking about. We just conducted a survey asking them, how can we get you to take more water? We're peddling our water to try to, because more revenue coming in from these folks relieves some of the rate pressure. So although I don't think, I would not imagine a time where you'd get a negative rate increase, where you get money back, but those 3.5s that I showed you, what my goal is to get those down. So we are ongoing looking for more cost efficiencies and looking for ways to make more revenue.
Thank you. So I have 2 more questions from council members, after which, if you'd like to make a brief summary, we can certainly do that. Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa, followed by Councilmember McCluskey. So.
Thank you.
I can wait. For the sake of time, I can.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right, Councilmember McCluskey.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank both of you for coming and giving us the details here. It's not something any of us want to hear, or experience on January 1st. So this is imminent, and it's going to happen quickly. That's kind of what I'm understanding from you. And there isn't a possibility of any prorating the increase over time. And the other component to that is, you alluded to some of your capital improvement projects. As a consumer of water, when I hear that, I'm going, how is that going to impact my health and well-being with the water supply coming in? Do I really want that to happen? We have one of the better water quality systems in the area. And that's a sense of pride, and also when you turn on the tap, you have a certain level of confidence that you can healthfully consume the water. So that first and foremost, the health and well-being of the quality of our water supply should be,
Number one priority.
The priority, and then the amount that we pay comes next. So in saying that, with the, no one's going to want to increase their water because it's going to increase their cost as well. So going back to this, so there could be a backlash. Some of the customers may say, well, now I have this huge increase. I'm going to not use as much water, which comes back around, could backlash back, because now we have a smaller pool of users. Is that part of the thinking in your model, that you're, in case there is a certain level of backlash? Because, some people are a little more free with water. They may take a bath or two, fill it up gallons and gallons, which is all good, right, for the flushing and everything. But then they may think, oh, well, I'm not going to fill it up as much. I'm going to take shorter showers and conserve that way, because my mom and dad was the best water conservationist ever. And you would not want them as customers. So have you thought about that in your model?
We have. Thank you for that. I did want to clarify that we do have an alternative scenario that was presented to the board that they're looking at. That would be a lower rate increase in 2024, and then an additional one in 2025 and 2026. So it would spread it across the 3 years. So that is another scenario that they're considering.
And these are on top of the already projected increases. So if we were projecting 3.5 and we were to spread this out, then it would be more like a 5% increase.
So it would be more at the end of the day.
Correct. And it would cost a bit more at the end.
Yes.
Okay. And then for the capital improvement projects that you're looking at, I noticed that has decreased in your model, because that will help improve our systems going on. You're considering a safety net in that category as well, or is that going to be pretty lean?
For the capital
Capital
work?
improvement projects.
We wouldn't do anything or not do something that would cause our system to be endangered or to put our customers in any harm's way. So the engineers that have been looking at 200 different projects are very carefully looking at that. We have some redundancy in our system. Most of our water comes from the Green River. And then we have the groundwater sources. So we've got a number of wells. So with this reduction in usage, it's like, well, maybe we can defer some of the work on some of the wells, right, and rely more on the river. So those are the kinds of discussions that we're having. But thank you for your comments, because we do want to make sure that the system is strong and that our customers are safe.
And I did just want to reiterate something that Jody said. So they did identify 6 projects that they could maybe delay for some time. But in addition to that, they identified 4 additional projects that would have to be done because of the closure. So we are taking it very seriously and making sure that the water quality is standard. And also, we do encourage conservation. I know that's counterintuitive, but we all know that that climate change is around, that the way the system, things could happen in the future could be different. And so we are not asking our customers to not conserve. But we also know that there's lots of development happening in lots of our service territory. There's new zoning regulations, as you all know from the state. There's like Tacoma is doing Home in Tacoma to increase density in areas. So we actually do expect there to be population growth that may offset that in the future as well. So all of these projections are included when we're thinking about budget and rates and how that's going to be impacted into the future. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and we're sorry to hear the news, so to speak, but understand that you're giving it every effort to make it as palatable but as necessary as it is. So I want to thank you both for being with us tonight, and look forward to seeing you another time, maybe with different news.
Yes, absolutely. And we do want you to know that, again, we've given these one-pagers so that folks know where they can go to get some additional information, and also if they want to provide any public comment to our Public Utility Board.
Thank you. We certainly
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Hey, Latasha, looking
Yes.
well. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, very good. Well, it's time for us to move on to our next item, which would be our open public comment for this evening. And we will be able to take comment from members of the public. There are a few cautions with that, I suppose, and I'm going to ask our city clerk to tell us about that. While she's doing that, you may want to look online. If you are online and want to make comments, you'll see instructions on how to do that by a phone number to call or by making yourself known by raising your hand online, and we will get to your comment as well. Emmy, please.
No one online. There's no one online, Mayor, but for the people here in chambers this time, citizens have 3 minutes to address the council on issues not scheduled for public hearing or council consideration. State law prohibits the use of this forum to promote or oppose candidates for public office or ballot measure. Please provide your name and address for the record.
And we'd like to start with any folks in the audience here tonight. So anyone who would like to come up and make comment about an item that isn't on tonight's agenda, we'd be certainly interested in hearing about that. Anyone here? Anyone? Not seeing anyone. We'll move on from public comment to our next item then. And that's going to be our consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa makes a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. A motion for approval from Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. Is there a second?
Councilmember Belisi, I second.
Very good. And a motion to second the consent agenda. Is there any objections to the consent agenda as proposed? I don't see any. The consent agenda is passed. We now move on to council consideration, and we have several items in front of us this evening. One is our city engineer, Public Works Director, rather, Jack Eklund, will be presenting to us. And thank you, Mr. Eklund. Glad to have your help here. We get to talk about the service management fee. Council has had 2 study sessions at least on this, and so we've had a chance to get into some details here. But it's time for us to move to consideration after the public's also had a chance to make any comments they wish. They'll be coming after Mr. Eklund's presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As you said, I'm Jack Eklund, Director of Public Works, and tonight we're bringing to you for your consideration our proposed updates to the city's surface water management fee. In your council packet, you're going to find a council bill that summarizes the staff recommendation, a proposed ordinance that includes a markup of the proposed changes to section 12.15 of the city's municipal code, as well as a copy of this presentation. And then in addition, I also have included a potential amendment to the ordinance based on some of our previous conversations that we can address, that I'll be addressing later in the presentation. Some of these slides will seem familiar with our past study sessions, but it's important to go over them again. The city's current surface water management fee is $191 per single-family home and equivalents. This is based on an impervious area charge of just over 7 cents per square foot of impervious area normalized to an average residential lot. Commercial users are charged based on the actual impervious area on their lots, and the fee is based on an actual cost model that takes needed expenses divided over users in the city. The fee was last adjusted for inflation in 2005 and was adjusted for initial NPDES programmatic costs in 2008. If the fee had been adjusted for inflation annually, the resulting fee would have been $292.61. The city's financial forecast shows that the Surface Water Management Fund will go into a negative balance beginning in 2025, and within 10 years will have nearly a $2 million deficit. This forecast assumes no capital expenditures after 2023 and a 3% average increase in operating costs. It's also important to note that the state is issuing a new NPDES permit to us in 2025 that will impose additional stormwater management requirements on the city. Our current fee level would not allow us to meet current NPDES requirements after this year, nor would it be able to meet the future requirements under the new permit. And for those watching at home, the NPDES permit, that is the city's annual municipal stormwater permit that is mandated by both the federal government and the state for us to operate our storm system. So this slide is should be familiar also by now. This shows our both our current rate as well as the proposed rate relative to the various jurisdictions around the city. The proposed rate that's recommended is just below Steilacoom and a little bit above Fife there. In order to minimize the annual surface water management fee to all property owners in the city, we are recommending implementing what's called a system development charge. This charge would be assessed to new development at the time of building permits based on the added impervious area and represents new growth buying into the existing storm drainage system. State law limits the maximum amount of this charge to be based on the equation shown on this slide. For University Place, this equates to a maximum charge of about $1,551 per residential equivalent. For our recommendation with the charge implementation would be to set a charge at $280 per equivalent residential unit. Since at this level, it would still result in a lower fee to all property owners, but would not pose a significant obstacle to new development. We are recommending, however, that the system development charge does not take into effect until 2025 in order to give grace period for any developments in the pipeline to get through permitting stage. This is a new slide. It was requested from the last the study session, and this shows a comparison of our proposed system development charge relative to some of our neighbors that also have implemented this charge. The proposed level of 280 would be comparable to what Steilacoom has, just a little below, but Gig Harbor does have one around $1,000, and Puyallup is closer to, it's $3,700. Now, in those dollar amounts are actually normalized to the same, I normalized those amounts based on the equivalent residential area. Their actual adopted rates in Puyallup, let's say, for example, their adopted rate is like $4,100, but they have a larger equivalent area of what they're using for their system development charge. So I put it there to make them all apples to apples. Now, council direction from the previous study session was to provide an analysis of the potential system development charge of $550 per residential equivalent and show how that compares and what it does to the fee relative to the 280. So this slide here demonstrates what this impact would do for developments. This shows in 3 different stages of development: a large development, and this would be starting from scratch. It'd be more like a big box or a very large residential development, and this would be like a Fred Meyer or a some of those new apartment complexes that we've seen, proposal housings out there by Orchard. This one, if they were to add 400,000 square feet of new impervious, under the $280 system development charge would be a rate of about $40,000. Under the 550, it would be about $83,000. A medium development, which would be similar to those a little smaller apartment complexes. They're still big, but relative, but like the Larson Apartments across the way. Probably more typical of the type of development we would see. Has about a $7,000 system development charge with the 280 and about $13,500 under the 550. And then a small development, something equivalent to like a fast food restaurant, would have a system development charge of about $2,600 at the 280, and a 550 it would be $52. Now this, to remind you, the system development charge is based on new impervious. So for example, if a development were to redevelop an existing parking lot, so like the development that's being built right now at the Narrows Plaza area, if that were to have come in under a system development charge, they really wouldn't have had a system development charge because they aren't adding any new impervious. It already was an impervious area. So it's really your net new that you're adding to the system. Now, as we mentioned, the fee calculation is a cost-based model, and as such, if the system development charge were to increase, the annual rate to all users would decrease. This slide does show the calculation, shows all the costs that have been built into the model, some of the revenues that are non-fee generated, and then at the bottom you can see the comparison between the 280 and the 550. At 280, it's estimated about $63,000 would be generated by the system development charge. At 550, it'd be about $124,000. The annual rate needed, if you had the 280, would be about $284,000. It'd be about $280,000 under the 550 for per residential equivalent. Now this slide shows, in our past study sessions, we have recommended an implementation of the annual swim rate increase over a period of 3 years. And we would recommend this regardless of the level of system development charge. So this shows what that would mean in each year. Now, the rate would be the exact same under either scenario in the 2024 because the system development charge, if you recall, I recommend we wouldn't come into effect until 25 anyway. And then it would be 25 and 26 that they would separate to just under about $4 by 2026, savings under the 550 system development charge. This shows what that means to your annual swim rate for like larger commercial users. So a Fred Meyer, if you had the annual rate under the 280 would be about $34,500. So basically, a Fred Meyer would save about $500 a year, and Albertsons would save about $300 a year. The Larson Apartments would save about $100 a year, and like a fast food like a Dairy Queen would save about $30 a year under the different scenarios. And then finally, the other recommendation we have that's part of this, and I'll be able to circle down and answer questions on the more meaty stuff that has new information. But just to put out there, we do have, there are 2 sections in the ordinance that we would be modifying, 121532, which relates to the fees, both the annual rate and the system development charge, and 121534 relates to our surface water management facility credits, and we're recommending adding an additional credit of 10% to swim rates to address developments that manage stormwater using low impact development techniques. And this is something that is, our NPDES permit requires us to provide some sort of encouragement for that type of use, and so that's how we are proposing to address it. So with that, I would like to note that, and let me back up to the different rates and we can talk about that, but My recommendation is to adopt the $280 system development charge. However, if council were to elect to adopt the $550 charge, I have included in your council packet an amendment to the proposed ordinance that has all the associated rates updated based on that system development charge. And so, but with that being said, that concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. I do want to note, I'm going to ask council for factual questions. Let me get one out of the way to begin with. So you mentioned a 10% low-impact development credit. Could you give us a brief example of how that would be used?
Yeah, so currently we have we offer a rate, there's various credits you can have, but one of the most prominent ones are basically based on your facility, how your facility functions. And this would all be for properties that have privately maintained storm drainage systems. And typically, you could get between a 10 to 25% discount to your annual swim rate, depending on your system performance. However, we are adding this low-impact development credit, and low-impact development, that's a term for techniques that try to imitate the natural environment for managing your stormwater. So encouraging infiltration and dispersion over large areas. And so this credit would allow, if you don't otherwise qualify for the facility credit based on your performance, you could get a 10% discount to your annual swim rate if you're able to demonstrate both that you have managed your stormwater under low impact development and also provide basically reports every year that you're maintaining them appropriately.
And one more question related to that. Is the 10% amendment in the draft ordinance, or rather in the ordinance that we have with us tonight? Okay.
It is, yes.
I thought I heard you added it. Sounds like you added it into the body of the ordinance. It will not take an amendment to add it. It would take an amendment to remove it. Gotcha.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The amendment specifically is only addressing because I know, based on our conversations, there is still some consideration on the 550.
On the 550 versus the 280, which is the system development charge rate, and what we want to do with that. Okay, council, so we have an opportunity to ask some factual questions, then we're going to take public comment, and then we would have discussion. Does anybody have a factual question? Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Thank you. Thank you for trying to clarify that, but I'm still want to make sure. So the alternative that you have in the package here to adopt a system development charge of $550, I see that as an alternative to the actual council action that's being proposed, which is not in the ordinance.
So in the ordinance as proposed in the council bill is the staff recommendation to have adopt the fees, both the annual fee as we presented, as well as a system development charge of the $280. If it's council's desire to do an amendment of the 550, then because you have the various rates, that then it does have some impacts on the annual rates. I included that calculation in the various rates for that if you did the 550.
Okay, so just a yes or no, because I'm
sorry.
still not there with you. Sorry, Jack. Is the proposed council action that how it reads, does that provide for the 550?
The proposed one provides for the 280.
Right, okay.
If you do the amendment, it would
We
be
have
550.
we have to add the amendment. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, very good. With that, then, we're ready to take public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to make comments about the proposed changes to the stormwater master plan, rate? I'm not sure if it's stormwater management fees rate. So, I don't see anyone in the room, and I'm not seeing anyone online. And I'm sure, by the way, if Councilmember Keel had a factual question earlier, he would have let me know. Okay. So we're good there. All right. So we'll move past the public comment section and move on to the discussion. And with the discussion, we'll go through, starting with Councilmember Keel.
I'd like to make a motion.
Sorry.
Point of
Yes,
order.
there would be a motion first. Would there be a motion?
Yes. So Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa makes a motion to pass an ordinance modifying sections 12.15 and 12.32 and 12.15.034 of the University Place Municipal Code relating to the surface water management fees and service charge credits, in addition to adopting, amending this council action, proposed council action to include and adopting a system development charge of 550 ERUs, period.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion to adopt and as well as an amendment to the originally
Okay,
proposed.
it looks like we got time
Point
now
of
from our
order,
attorney.
our attorney would like to weigh in.
Okay.
I believe the proper action would be move the ordinance.
Yes.
Once a motion and second has been made for the ordinance, then move the amendment.
Thank you. So, I'll restart, Mayor.
You bet. Please do.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion to pass the ordinance modifying the sections that I previously said relating to the surface water management fees and service charge credits.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'm confused. What
So
did
the motion is to adopt the ordinance as presented in the council bill or council packet. Is there a second?
Second.
If not, second? Okay, we have a second. All right. And let's see, would there, with that,
I make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem makes a motion to amend the proposed action to adopt a system development charge of $550 for the ERUs.
okay. And we now have a motion to amend, adjusting the system development charge to 500.
Is that correct?
No, no.
The entire
If you
thing.
wanted to get there with the amendment, just simply say, I move the amendment,
Yeah.
which is contained in the packet, and replace section 1 of, I'm saying this, so you can just go, so moved.
Yeah.
To replace the text in section 1, that provision of section 1 codifying UPMC 1215.032 with the language set forth in Amendment 1.
So Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa, I move on the amendment.
There you go.
Thank you. So we have a motion to amend. Is there a second on the motion to amend? Second on the motion to amend?
Second.
Second. There's a second. All right, well, then we will have discussion on the amendment. And with that, we would start, as our habit is, with seat number 1, and Councilmember Keel. So, Councilmember Keel, do you have any comments on the amendment as proposed?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I am happy that we have the amendment. As we talk through this, and I did my study, I do lean toward the 550 SDC because of the fact we were so far behind, and that the difference between the 280 and the 550, as staff has shown us, is not that significant. And and again, I'm talking about other people's money, but it to me, it's not that significant when we're talking, in some cases, $30 for some large corporations and things. So yes, I am in favor of the amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Wood, do you have a comment on the amendment?
I do, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to say I support the amendment as well. I believe it goes a small way towards rebalancing a little bit between the private homeowner versus new developers coming in, and I think it's a good idea. And it's interesting that the roughly $4 improvement for the individual homeowner somehow closely matches up with what the Public Utility Board is going to probably take from them in the water rates. So it's kind of sad, but anyway, that's my comment. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember McCluskey, do you have a comment? Councilmember McCluskey, you do not. Councilmember Fleming.
I know we both look alike.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Actually,
Mr. Mayor.
I'd mentioned I was going by the voting chart, and for whatever reason, the voting chart now has Councilmember McCluskey before Councilmember Fleming.
Well, that's correct.
Okay, good enough. All
She
right.
always goes before me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Anyhow, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, I've said this before in the study sessions, I'll say it again to Mr. Eklund and the staff. I just want to thank you all for hearing what the council said the first time, and that is give us a proposal that the public, our constituents, could deal with. And you did just that in the original proposal. I oppose the amendment because my constituents are not as rich as Councilmember Keel's or Councilmember Wood's constituents. So it may be $4 here or $4 there, but it adds up to a family. So I oppose the amendment, but I do support, when we get to the conversation, the proposal that the staff has brought forward, because it really does balance out in the end for the families in this community. So
Mayor,
those are my comments.
Mayor, I need to rebut. I think his facts are wrong, and I'd just like to give an opportunity to clarify.
So,
I think it requires that.
It's lower
all right.
for residents.
So,
Would you like
a little out of order here, but in any case,
Or maybe a clarification.
Yeah, I can do a
let me invite
clarification.
Councilmember Wood to comment.
Just a quick clarification, it's, yes, I have the same constituents you do, number one. Thank you for that.
I don't know about that, but go ahead.
All right. And two, the 550 SDC actually reduces the customer rate by $4, doesn't increase it by $4. That's why I'm supporting it, because that's the difference.
Yeah,
Councilmember Wood, then I stand corrected. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
yeah,
All right, good. Very good. Thank you. And then Councilmember Belisi.
No comment.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. I do believe this is the right thing to consider and to vote on tonight. And by the way, Councilmember Fleming, these positions we're all in are at large. We all have the same constituents. So with that, I believe that are we going to be hitting developers or anyone at that level? I think staff mentioned that most likely the biggest numbers will be in developments or projects that are into the $30, $40, $50 million category.
Yep.
And I, as being in the development business for many years, I can tell you that the difference in $10,000 in that business, in that kind of a project, as the least of their issues or problems, and if it's making the city happy, they're more than happy to just contribute that as part of doing business. And most developers, as you've seen, for many other reasons, they're always trying to say, how do I contribute to the community? They do it through parks, impact fees, and other impact fees. I think this is just one. Yes, it's just another one, but it is part of everyday life, even for businesses or just everyday living, where there's increases. It's just the state of what we're in constantly. So I think this is the right thing to consider tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Let's see, as to me, I prefer the 280. I'll be voting against the amendment. I think that's actually strikes a better balance in my mind. I think this other approach increases the system development charge by about double in terms of the cost to the new project coming in. Admittedly, large projects cost a lot of money, but this is one where there's some opportunity to mitigate a little bit of that. Regardless, I'd be happy to take us to a vote. So, Amy, would you mind conducting a roll call vote, unless there's any further comment from council?
Yeah, Mayor?
Oh, Councilmember Keel.
Thank you. I just want to underscore again Councilmember Wood's point that the 550 actually reduces by $4 to the individual residents by raising it on the businesses. And that's the linchpin for me, is that for the individual homeowner, my interest is lowering their costs, and this does that.
Thank you.
Just want to be clear.
Certainly. Any other comments? I don't see any.
Just a quick clarification on that, and I the SDC also, it would also decrease, well, if you did the amendment, it also it's the annual rate for all. So whether it's a homeowner or an existing commercial user, that all of it would decrease proportionate to the rate if you did increase it. The impact is on new development, not existing users. So just so it's clear for folks watching at home that if we increase the system development charge, that doesn't mean an increase to your individual. It would be a less, it's still an increase overall, but it'd be less than what it would be if we didn't. So that's to both homeowners and existing users. So like a Fred Meyer will still reduce its annual one if you did the 550, but it's a new development that would have a higher impact if you, at the time of permit, if you adopted the 550. That's what the distinction is between the two.
Yeah, and that's the point that I want to make sure that people understand that when I vote for the higher, it's not me voting for a higher cost for homeowners and existing businesses. That is not the case.
Yeah. Fine, thank you. Is everyone done?
No.
Councilmember
No, I made it more confusing, sorry.
Jack, wait till we're done here. No. All right, I appreciate that clarification because the way I understood it from what you had shared previously is that we went with the higher rate. The current homeowners would pay a higher rate. But from what you're saying now, existing businesses, existing homeowners go with the lower rate. New development goes with the higher rate if we vote on the amendment.
Yes.
Right.
All right. I think we're ready. Thank you.
I think we're ready. We're all clear? All right. Now, let's proceed with that roll call vote I threatened before.
And this is for the amendment?
Lord.
This is for the amendment.
For the amendment.
Councilmember Keel?
Aye.
Councilmember Wood?
Aye.
Councilmember McCluskey?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Belisi?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa?
Aye.
Mayor Worthington?
No.
Vote result, 6 ayes, 1 no. Motion passes.
The amendment passes, and we're now going to consider the main motion as amended. And once again, Councilmember Keel, would you like to start us in that discussion?
No further comment from me.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to Councilmember Wood.
I have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember McCluskey.
Aye.
No comment.
Oh, well, that's what happens when I do a sidebar comment.
Sorry. But no comment at this time with regards to
Well,
the main
my
motion
comment
as amended?
is that I like how it's going to impact the actual initial development and user, because that's the actual cost and impact, at the front end. And then the selling point is that years later, once you're constructed, your cost is actually going to go down by that $4 rate or whatever overall, which, as we heard from TPU, is negating it and putting us more in the red anyway. So that's my comment.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Fleming, any comments you'd like to make on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Mr. Eklund for making that extremely clear in the 11th hour. So we're totally fine. Thank you.
Councilmember Belisi?
No comment.
All right. And Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. Thank you, staff, especially Jack, for the options presented, and especially for better words, the escalation of the increases on the residential side, or I guess everybody. And I think that was appropriate for them to present and for us to take instead of taking it all at one time. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. In regards to my comments, one, it is difficult passing this in a number of ways. It is actually a large number, and it will impact folks. At the same time, we haven't adjusted our stormwater fee since 2005 for inflation, since 2008 as a matter of a work program. That thing has stayed stagnant for, I think it's something like 15 years. Frankly, we as a council need to be more attuned with this because this is dramatically large, only because we haven't touched it for 15 years. And we need to be able to do this in a more routine, average, common way, and frequency. And then we can do it by 1.5%, 2%, maybe 3%. This is a big jump. But because we don't have any resources to maintain the stormwater plan as we need to, and because we have a capital program that we've committed to, as well we should, to protect our citizens and their property, we need to build the infrastructure to make it happen. And the federal government continues to raise standards, and that pushes us too. This is our job, it is their job, and we need to get the revenue to be able to do it. I just feel that we could have served better if we had done this more frequently than waiting 15 years to take this task on. So, with that said, I'm ready to vote. Emmy, would you be kind enough to, one more time?
This is for the main motion. Councilmember Keel?
Aye.
Councilmember Wood?
Aye.
Councilmember McCluskey?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Belisi?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa?
Aye.
Mayor Worthington?
Mayor Worthington, aye.
Vote result 7-0. Ayes.
The ordinance passes and will come into effect as the ordinance indicates. That brings us on to our next item. And so the next item is a discussion of council salary. We've had a previous study session, and we have some folks here to talk to us about how, if the council chooses to change salary, that could happen. And council, I'm sure, will talk about why that is or is not a good idea.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Bernadette Moreland, and I'm here to talk about council salary related to PERS contribution. Our Director of Administrative Services, Lisa Pitorak, will be talking about the salary commission portion of this presentation. So tonight, I'd like to talk about council salaries in relation to PERS contribution. First, let us revisit the two rules that regulates Washington State Department of Retirement Systems, PERS, service credits for elected officials. The first rule I'd like to point out to is Washington Administrative Code 415108-570. And this is the rule that sets the requirements for service credits, and the applicable section is Section 2 of this rule, subsection C, 1 to 3. So that rule talks about two requirements that has to be satisfied to receive service credits for elected officials. And what are those two requirements? One, there is a salary requirement, and then the second one is the hours that are being reported by the city for elected officials. So note that these two requirements have both to be satisfied in order to receive service credits. So what are those three scenarios? One, the salary threshold, which is 90 multiplied by the prevailing minimum wage, and in 2023, minimum wage of $15.74, if you multiply that by 90, it will give you $1,416.60. So to receive service credit, one service credit for elected officials, you've got to have a salary of $1,416.60 and reporting hours of more than 90 hours. Second scenario, a salary threshold of $1,416.60, and if the city reports less than 90 hours, but equal or more than 70 hours, you will get 1/2 service credits. The third scenario is salary threshold of $1,416.60, and if the city reports less than 70 hours, you get a quarter service credit. So I'd like to reference also Washington Administrative Code 415-108-550, and this is the rule that points out to membership, which says, once elected, it shall remain irrevocable until you separate from all eligible employment. So this is the reason why you cannot stop contributing unless you elect to separate from service. Next slide, please. So the current council member receives a monthly compensation of $1,408. Council members did not receive service credits in 2023 because the compensation fell short of the required threshold, which is $1,416.60. In 2024, minimum wage will go up to $16.28. And so salary threshold for council members to receive service credit next year will be $1,465.20. With that, council can consider a change in council member compensation to $1,783, assuming a 4% inflationary factor. This is a very conservative estimate with the hope that it will take council members to the next election cycle. If this is the route council will take, it will have a budgetary impact in 2024 of about 26%, or translated in dollars, that's $38,000 more than what is budgeted in next year. Next slide, please. So what are the options for council consideration at this point? Number one, make no changes to council member compensation, and current participating members will continue to contribute, and the city will keep contributing even though council members do not receive service credits, unless the member is selected as mayor or mayor pro tem. The second consideration for council is to consider raising council member compensation to $1,783 and maintain an 8% differential in between the mayor and the mayor pro tem. The third for council consideration is the council may discuss the merits of a salary commission, and at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Lisa Pitora.
Thank you, Bernadette. So currently, council salaries are set by ordinance by the council themselves, but there is another mechanism that council salaries can be changed, and that is with a salary commission. So the requirements are provided for the formation of a salary commission under RCW 35.21.015. In relation to the formation of a salary commission, commissioners shall be appointed by the mayor with the approval of city council. Commissioners may not be appointed to more than 2 terms on the salary commission, and they may not include any officer, official, or employee of city or any of their immediate family members. And so for clarification, I wanted to note that under the draft ordinance that's in your materials this evening, an official would include any city legislative advisory commissioner under University Place Municipal Code 1.35. So for example, that would be the Planning Commission, Economic Development Commission, Public Safety Commission, and so forth. So just wanted to provide that clarification there. Also, RCW 35.21.015 defines what an immediate family member is, and that is any parent, spouse, sibling, children, or dependent relatives of the officer, official, or employee
whether or not living in the household of the officer, the official, or the employee. So just wanted to call that out. Some considerations that are related to the formation that are not considered in the RCW but are contemplated in the draft ordinance in your materials this evening for your potential discussion are the number of commission members that would be on a salary commission. The proposed draft ordinance has 7 as the number of members. The terms would be in 4-year terms. Should a salary commission be formed, it would be recommended that the setup would be with staggered terms to provide for some continuity of new members with old salary commission members. So there would be some continuity in the years for the terms. So for an example, if a salary commission was formed, 3 commissioners would be appointed for a 2-year term. The remaining 4 commissioners would be appointed for a 4-year term. And then in the draft ordinance, there is also a residency requirement. So a commissioner would have to reside within the city limits of University Place. And then the number of times that they would meet would be as follows. They would convene biannually in even years prior to the adoption of the biennial budget. And the reason behind that would be that those discussions could be had and any changes then could be applied to the biennial budget when that gets adopted. In relation to the responsibilities of changes to a council member salary via commission, the RCW continues to state that changes shall be filed by the Salary Commission with the city clerk and shall become effective and incorporated into the city budget without any further action of the city council or the commission. Additionally, salary increases established by the Salary Commission shall be effective as to all elected officials regardless of their terms of office, and they would take effect immediately. In the draft ordinance, it's provided that if a salary increase was to be determined by the Salary Commission, it would take effect on the next regular payday for regular employees of city. And just so that you know, the regular pay dates are the 5th and 20th of each month. Salary decreases that are determined by the Salary Commission shall become effective as to the incumbent city elected officials at the commencement of the next subsequent term of office if they are re-elected to office. So it's important to note that salary increases can occur immediately upon the determination of the Salary Commission, but salary decreases cannot. And that's due to the requirement of the Washington State Constitution regarding that. So with that, that concludes the staff report on the salary. Oh, sure, please.
And if I can just butt in there and kind of put a period on this. In your packet tonight, you have 2 ordinances. The council can adopt one or the other, both or none. You'll note that there's 2 different accompanying council bills. It effectively is, council asked for a range of options. You have a range of options presented in your packet tonight for council deliberation and discussion. So with that, we can turn it back to council.
All right, thank you. So in a little bit, we'll start a discussion, and I'll also talk about process. But before I do that, there were a couple of clarifying questions I wanted to get addressed, and the council will also have a chance for clarifying questions too. And then we'll have a chance for public comment. On the clarifying questions, if council were to pass this this evening, when would it come in force?
Which this?
This would be what I think referred to as, is it number 2? It is the council-directed salary increase.
The council salary directed increase. The effective date of, let's talk about the effective date of the increases, which I think is where you're going with this. So I'll take the mayor and the mayor pro tem piece out of the equation just temporarily so I don't overly complicate it. Because of the constitutional requirement that you can't vote on a salary increase applicable to you during your term of office, for the council members who, there's 3 seats on the ballot this year that would then take office beginning in January of 2024. Those 3 individuals, all other things being equal, I'm going to throw a curveball in here in a second, would see the increase. The other 4 positions would see the increase with that term of office then beginning on or after January 1st of 2026. The mayor and the mayor pro tem positions would see the increase beginning with the term of office beginning January of 2024, irrespective of when they originally were elected to office as a member of the city council.
And so what would happen if this were to be passed at the next meeting, not this meeting?
At the next meeting, then that what I just said, you're shifting the entire timetable associated with that to the 26 and 28 election cycles. And those 4 positions that I shared that would take the benefit of the salary increase in 2026, they would still see that in 26. It would be the other 3 then that would see it in 28. The mayor and the mayor pro tem salaries would then go into effect in 26.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to be...
And the basis for that is it's constitutional provision that you have to act on it before the election and the term of office, unless council wish to schedule a special meeting addressing this.
And I just wanted to underline for the public, the reason for this tonight is if this is going to happen in order to cure whatever it is tonight or it's 2 years from now and then 2 years later from now. Okay. And then procedurally, I'll talk about that now, and then we can get around to see about council factual questions. Procedurally, we have both motions tonight.
I have a question.
Public comment.
I have a question.
Public comment.
We do. We do have public comment, and we haven't gotten around yet to see about it, if there's any factual questions either. But let me talk procedurally about it. So, and so we have the 2 motions, the 2 options tonight. I'm looking for whoever would like to make a motion. I will, whoever has my attention first, I'll recognize for that motion, to make a motion. And that is slightly different than what we have been doing since COVID, where the mayor pro tem has first dibs, so to speak. So it's a little more.
So we're going to motion before questions, clarifying
I am,
questions.
at this particular point, I'm just talking about procedures for tonight. This is, yes. Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just a little confused because I thought in our last council meeting, we had talked about this salary commission, but we wanted to do that in a study session and have some time to talk about it. Has that changed?
The council did talk about that. I wasn't here for that meeting. I did watch the meeting in some detail in preparation for tonight. I also had one of the council, in talking with the mayor pro tem as well, decided that we would put both motions available for us for consideration tonight. Whether we go to we do them or not is entirely up to council. So, but that is basically, I had heard from one of the council members that had been saying, let's just do the salary, the council directed salary, who then came back and said, no, I've changed my mind, let's do the salary commission salary. So I wanted to just put them both on the agenda so we could get this sorted out.
Okay, I was just under the impression we were going to have more conversation on that before we put it up to a vote, so.
Yep.
So be it.
If you, I'm open to having some procedural conversation on that, and it's been a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, so.
Mayor, he wasn't, Councilmember Fleming wasn't here when Matt talked about the options of how to vote for any one of them. So Matt might need to repeat that for the benefit of Councilmember Fleming.
So, Councilmember Fleming, I know you, anyhow, occasionally you all have to step away from the times. But I can see there's some puzzled looks, so I'd rather deal with this now than after we get through the discussion. It's better on the front end, which is why I wanted to procedurally talk about this now. So, Matt, would you like to?
I will repeat what I said when Councilmember Fleming.
I apologize, Matt.
It happens. No problem. Council can pass one the other, both, or none of these ordinances. You'll know that there's 2 council bills, 2 separate sets of analysis and discussion for this. How council wishes to proceed is entirely up to council.
Okay, and I understand that process. My confusion was, on the last council meeting, there was a request from council to put this into a study session, and that was what I thought we were going to go with. So, but, it's on the docket tonight, so we move forward from there.
And that was, yeah, I understand your question and the confusion, not confusion, it's a very legitimate question and such. I believe it can still find its way easily enough to a study session if there continues to be interest in it. So, doesn't need to be essentially voted tonight.
Yeah, there's nothing, if I can on that point, there's nothing requiring that there be the motion or a second on one of the matters, or a motion to table it would also be in order if it received a motion and a second.
Councilmember Keel, are you, any questions on your part procedurally?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Procedural question. So I understand all the options that the city attorney has given us. I can follow all of them, except for the one where, under the scenario, we pass both of them. What is that like? Because they seem to be opposite of each other in 2 different roads. So if we pass both of them, how do we do both?
The way you would end up passing both, if council chose to pass both, you would have a salary commission that would have to get organized, most likely at some point in time later this year, early next year. They would have to hold their biannual meeting some point in time before council begins the the budgetary discussion next year. That salary decision that the salary commission would make, assuming for the sake of pure argument that it's an increase, would then have to be reflected in the budget and would supersede the action tonight. If it were a decrease, that salary would, the salary commission recommendation, or not recommendation, their decision would not take effect until the end of the following term. So the salary increase that council could conceivably vote on tonight, assuming you're hypothetical, would still remain in effect. Confused? Hopefully
I see.
not.
No, I got it.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm trying to make sure it's not.
Surprisingly, I followed that.
Okay.
So it's scary. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, good. Any
Thank you,
other
Mayor.
procedural questions there?
No, I think we got it.
Okay. Okay, I think, all right. So with that, does council have any factual questions they want to ask staff before we turn to public comment? Councilmember Bleasy.
This concerns the pay and PERS retirement system eligibility. If a council member is currently under a PERS employer, would their compensation under the current salary amount of $1,408 be eligible to be included in their total earnings without service credit, because you're only allowed 1 service credit per month, and you would assume that you get it from your original employer. So do the provisions of service credit requirements still hold for the 1408, or is that added, is that considered, taken into account for your retirement basis?
Very good question, Councilmember Belici. The WAC is very specific that this regulation is for elected officials and that position alone. So I hope that answers you.
No, what I'm saying is, without our action of increasing the council salary so they make it eligible for PERS, if they are currently in the PERS system and receiving service credits elsewhere, that their current salary amount is included in their total earnings for retirement basis, correct? And the answer is yes, because although I don't receive PERS credits for 2023 on my council salary, because I was employed by Pierce County until the September of 2023 or 2022, my council salary, although I'm not getting service credits, is still factored into the pool of what my retirement will be when I turn 65. So, you know, so that's what I was getting to.
Okay.
So people that are in the system are still eligible and still receiving credit for their retirement, even though they're not receiving service credits. Yeah.
Because they're getting it from the other employer.
Right.
Yeah.
And those of us on council that were in the PERS system in 2023 are still accumulating a balance for earnings purposes when it comes to retirement, unless we have already initiated the retirement claim through PERS. We're still creating the balance. We may
I could probably call up DRS to just verify the information, and then we'll circle back to you.
So, you know, to go through this exercise for three council members, and then others, and
Is this
anyway.
a debate or a clarification?
And also, just to clarify, the $38,000 increases for 2024 for 3 council members, plus the mayor and the mayor pro tem's increase. It's not for all 7 council members, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Clarifying factual questions, Councilmember Wood, did you have one?
Yes, just quickly, based on Councilmember Belicia's discussion, my understanding is that the retirement's calculated off of high 3 times service credits, or some kind of calculation there. It's not a total amount of money entered into the system.
Yes,
correct?
that is correct. For PERS 2, it's 2% multiplied by the average final compensation, which is 60 consecutive months,
Right.
the highest during your career, not just the 5. Sometimes it happens during the last 5 years, multiplied by average final compensation. Yeah. Average final compensation multiplied by number of years, multiplied by 2%. For PERS 3, the 1% is the factor there for calculation.
Okay. And then just to clarify, well, I think that answers it. So based off high 3, it's not based off of total amount of money you pay into the system. You could pay in for 20 years at below service credit rate, and it's not going to make a difference as far as that goes, other than if your high 3 changes.
It's actually 60 months, which is 5 years.
Okay. Thank you. Or, sorry, high 3. Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
Are we taking commission questions too?
I'm
Both?
sorry.
The second one, are we?
Yes, we're
doing
taking
both?
factual questions on
both?
On both, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, then I
Yeah,
have one.
please. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And this is, I believe, Mr. Kazier answered this before, but I want to circle back because I, as a sitting council member, don't want to vote on and increase my salary. Employers don't allow employees to set their own pay. So I'm uncomfortable setting, the council seat pay rate that I'm currently sitting in, even for future council members. So I was leaning towards the council commission formation, that I'm not comfortable with how neutral that commission is going to be at the end of the day, because there's an appointment by the mayor with the approval of the city council that's getting the benefit at the end of the day. So I like everything about it except for that. I want it to be unbiased, neutral, factual, based, not, so I don't know how to get there, especially when you have the appointment by the mayor and the city council. So that's my angst with that. So how do we create an unbiased commission? Because I believe you said that this is state law.
Right. I'm not sure from a legal perspective that I can give you a legal answer to your question. The appointment of a salary commission, the appointment by the mayor, confirmation by council, comes directly from the statute.
Right.
So I'm not sure, like I said, what additional legal action or safeguards that can be put in there without somehow violating those provisions of the statute. I think the answer probably lies outside the legal realm, which is to say, in that appointment process with a mayoral nomination and council confirmation, at the end of the day, the appointment of those members of the commission, you know, it's like the other commissions that we have. You know, the mayor, whoever is sitting in the mayor's seat makes those appointments, and it's an up or down vote by the remaining members of the council. Functionally and process-wise, it's the same from that perspective. You know, mayoral appointment, council confirmation. The one exception being, at least with those 4 other commissions, by code, we have the interview committee on appointments. This legislation is silent on that, and I would not want to run afoul of that statute, which is why it's not in the proposed ordinance. So at the end of the day, the question then becomes for council, how comfortable are you forward-looking with that statutory program with a mayoral appointment and a council confirmation? And like I said, I don't think that's a legal question. I think that's a question for the 7 of you to answer if you get to that point in the discussion and what your comfort level is.
Well, right now, in alignment with Councilmember Fleming and Councilmember Belishi, they pretty much says these salary commissions are kind of like puppet. They just blanket rate approve it. I could see that happening pretty readily. And for the sense of transparency, equity, and fairness, being appointed by the mayor and approval by the city council, that doesn't do it for me. And so you're saying that there's really nothing we can do outside of the law. So maybe this is a great one to table, and maybe we can get creative and figure out how we can create a salary commission with that sense of equity and transparency that is one step beyond the city council in that place. But anyway, those are my
Other
comments for that
factual
one.
questions? So, Councilmember Belize.
So-
Councilmember Fleming.
Okay, so for clarification, we ourselves could not put, for lack of a better word, requirements that that applicants have certain skill levels, that we have at least 1 or 2 representatives that have HR, payroll background or understanding. It could just be any Joe Blow that may or may not receive a paycheck and comes in and because they are liked by council members, their applications are approved.
I would recommend against putting a qualification
Okay.
basis.
So another reason that the salary commission is a way for council just to ingratiate a higher salary, and why salary commissions historically don't disapprove or lower salaries, I would say. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, when you look at salary commissions, I've said this before, I'll say it again. There's pros and cons for those. There's good reasons to have them, and there's, for the reasons that are already surfacing here, there's reasons why we shouldn't have them. I know in the past, the previous councils have said no, because the position has been, if a council really believes that they deserve a pay raise, then the council should make that decision. The reason for having a council or having a salary commission is, quite frankly, is the council doesn't have the guts to do it, so they appoint a commission who typically, historically, and about 99% of the time says yes. So, you know, my position has been, if you're a council member, regardless of, take the names off, but regardless of who they may or may not be, if they really believe in what they're doing, if they really believe that, you know, they're providing that service, they're working for the people of this community, and they deserve that. And I think in our last conversations, I think there were several council members who made a very strong and compelling reason why those salaries should be increased. And I think those were good reasons from my perspective. Then you stand behind what you believe in. And we just, you know, put it to the vote, and if you believe in it, vote it up. If you don't, vote it down. I don't believe we need a salary commission to hide behind to get salaries increased. So that's my position.
Thank you, Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Keel, I
Mr.
want to
Mayor?
make sure I'm not ignoring you there. Did you have a factual issue?
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order.
Yes, please, point of order.
We're discussing here now just the procedure. We're not debating the merits up or down of either the salary commission or the thing. If we could focus our comments on procedure, I'd much appreciate
And
it.
deal with factual and not coloring the issue?
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank
That
you.
was factual, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councilmember Keel, a factual question?
No, Mayor, not at that time. I do appreciate Councilmember Woods refocusing on topic. So and by him doing that, negated my question, kind of going in that direction. I was going to go ahead with that flow too as well.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Keel. My sense is we are ready to go to public comment. So, and with that in mind, I would invite members of the public online or in person to have 3 minutes available to make comment.
Did you, just as a point of clarification, do
Please.
you want public comment before there's a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
You can do it. I just want to make sure that we're tracking.
I really do know motions are necessary, but
Mayor Pro Tem makes a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have a motion.
Yes, sir. Make a motion to pass an ordinance amending and retitling Section 320.040 of the City of University Place Municipal Code relating to the salaries for council members as number 2, considering raising the council salary to $1,783 and maintain a 8% differential in between mayor and mayor pro tem.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All right, the motion, we have a proper motion. Now we can go to public comment and such. So I invite members of the public to come up. We have up to 3 minutes available, and if you would take a moment to introduce yourselves, that's always appreciated. Please.
Dennis Flan, 2623 Lemons Beach Road. Good evening, council and mayor. It's an important discussion we're having this evening, and I don't know how much I'm going to enlighten, but here I go. I am here this evening to discuss the pending vote for a wage increase for council members that would include a pension benefit that would require city match funds to the PERS pension fund. When current council members were elected, a pension was not part of the city's responsibility. The council's current wage is above or at par with similar-sized cities, while our tax burden is higher. The elected position has many responsibilities and commitments that everyday citizens are not exposed to. This is a voluntary commitment made by individuals with the purpose to contribute expertise they acquired elsewhere to enhance our community. I recognize the efforts put forth and appreciate time sacrificed by members, even though I have not always agreed with ballot measures put to the vote. It is my understanding a new surface water tax is pending, potentially a transportation benefit tax increase. Considering that Prop 1 property tax increase was put in place by voters only after a second ballot, had these tax increases been exposed prior to the second vote, I doubt Prop 1 would have passed. I view this as a political manipulation, as the wage increase proposal for council being necessary to access the public pension plan appears. This elected position did not promise a city-funded retirement, and I think setting term limits would keep fresh ideas coming out of the council chambers and negate the problem of a pension plan. Seeking higher office in larger districts is always an option after having been exposed in UP City Council. Our city has seen many changes, and the future looks to have even more population than our infrastructure can support. Keeping city budgets under control without overtaxing residents should be number one going forward. I appreciate and agree with the comments made by your fellow council members at the October 2nd meeting regarding maintaining no pension policy going forward. Thank you for your time and efforts. No salary commission. Table this issue, please.
Mr. Flan, thank you. I appreciate the comments.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Debbie Kolzeski, 6834 Chambers Creek Road West. Serving on the council can be a rewarding, frustrating, and time-consuming experience. Each of you makes a conscious decision regarding how much time and effort you're able to devote to this part-time position. But when you decide to serve, and serve is the key word, I believe it means looking out for our community's best interest. UP has approximately 34,000 residents. According to a 2023 salary review of 18 comparable cities, the average council's monthly stipend was just over $1,100 per month. If you examine cities with similar populations, our council is among the highest paid. For example, Des Moines has a $500 monthly stipend, Maple Valley has $730 a month, and Puyallup, with 43,000 population, had over a $1,400 monthly stipend. Right now, our council receives a very generous stipend, with council members receiving $1,400 a month, while the pro tem gets $1,500 and the mayor makes a bit over $1,600. I am very much against this proposed increase, which would result in a budgeted amount of $37,000 for council salaries. And instead of enriching council members' salaries, this money could be better spent on police overtime, public works, or parks, projects that could make an impact on our citizens' lives. Serving on the city council can be a thankless job with a lot of difficult decisions, but this decision should be an easy one. Please refrain from giving an increase to salary to the council salary positions, which are all already very generous. You reject those unnecessary increases, and you use the remaining funds for projects to help benefit our citizens. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Pawlowski. Appreciate you coming in and particularly your viewpoints as a former mayor for us. With that, are there any other public comments? I don't see any, and so that will move us on to discussion. I'm going to take a little bit of opportunity with starting that discussion. A couple of quick things I wanted to frame some things up on. And a little bit of that is just as a reminder of what brings this issue to us. While I don't think it is as widely known as perhaps it might be, the reality is that the City Council, those members who wish to be contributing members to PERS, were members of PERS and earning credit from the first day that they chose to enroll until, as it turns out, January of this year. The state's recalculation of, based on an increase in the minimum wage, caused the PERS retirement program that council members in certain cases had been making a number of life plans around to go away unexpectedly and unannounced. This was compensation that they had been getting for about a dozen years, in some cases longer, and some cases less. It's not actually direct compensation. They actually make a contribution along with the city's contribution as well. So just to be clear, actually they were getting in the PERS retirement program until January, and then it became available, or not really available, excuse me, a little more known to council that this change occurred through no one's individual effort, that the change occurred. It was a math calculation based on an increased minimum wage that we started getting wind of in June, started working with a little bit. Some of this really has the potential to impact people's life's plans. And so that is, I think, what, for me at least, motivated this issue to come forward. I'm always looking for some opportunity to say this. I'll say it tonight. This has no real effect on me as a retiree. I am retired already in the system. I'm not earning more credits, haven't been for 3 years. This doesn't affect me. It's not about me. It's more about why people choose to come on to a city council position. And in my mind, 6 of the 7 people that sit with me, 6 of us, are potentially PERS qualified employees. And why does that happen? I think it's because we have in our nature some interest in serving the public. And that may bring us into elected office at times. It is, however, a bit of a reality that happens fairly frequently in local government. This is a choice you make when you start, but as an elected official in Washington State, if you can qualify for PERS, which we did. Once you make that choice, as we heard earlier tonight, it's irrevocable, and you continue to pay into the system for a period of time. That's been a sudden change, and on behalf of my colleagues, I have been interested in seeing if there's a way for us to provide some cure to that. The cure has been curious, and that brings us to this evening, and it has affected many of the people here, and it has adjusted their life plans, and that's unfortunate. Basically, in a sense, our employer had a change in the plans that we had no voice in, and we're trying to figure out a way for some of us to get back to it. Me, doesn't matter. There's one other person, or maybe more, that are in a similar state where this has no effect regardless of what happens. If we do pass a salary ordinance tonight, and I'm not sure we will, but we may, if we do pass, I won't be affected by that until I stand for election if I choose to run again, and if the public chooses to elect me again. That's the only way I'll benefit. And that's frankly the way it should be. It's the state constitution. I have no problem with that. I do have an issue, though, as I said, about a change in the expectations of an employment agreement. So that's what I didn't get to say because I wasn't here at the last meeting. And that was, I had another duty as a member of the council that I was on, and I'll talk about that during council comments. But I just wanted to start off with framing things a little bit. And with that, I would invite other comments, and we're going to go, again, working through the speaking and voting chart, which takes us to seat number 1, Councilmember Keel.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them and appreciate hearing your view because you weren't at the meeting last time. Similar to, as I said before, and I'll just reiterate some of the things I talked about before. However this goes, I won't benefit from it, whatever we do. As everyone knows, I'm not running for my seat this year, and in December 31 of this year, I will be off the city council. So nothing of what we do in the future will impact me positively. However, I will say that what has happened, as the mayor just alluded to, this change has impacted me negatively, very much so, in as much that I do now have to make some life plans. As far as retirement, as you said, Mayor, I've been on this council for 12 years, and for 11 of those years, I was paying into the retirement system, meaning the system was taking money out of my stipend to put into retirement, and I was receiving credit. Now, as of January, they're still taking money out of my stipend to pay into retirement, but now I'm not getting credit. I don't know where the equity is in that. If they weren't going to give me credit, then stop taking money out of my stipend. But I have to keep paying, but I'm not getting the benefit. So that doesn't seem fair to me. And I will tell you, I did come to this position with service on my mind. 12 years ago, we didn't have a city town center. The town center was not built. I was on the school board for 10 years, and over there, everything has been great. We were a very good board over there. I think education was going great. We promised, we delivered new schools and things like that. But when the town center wasn't built, because of whatever reason, how you put it, the city just couldn't pull it together. I decided to serve and come here and do what I could to build the town center. Town center was built. So I did have service on it. And I think I delivered on that. That promise, as well as, the promise of trying to increase our police presence. Finally, we delivered on that promise that I gave to folks coming in. So I think that I've held up my end of the bargain as far as being a council member and service over these 12 years. In addition to those things, I have served as Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor. I've served on Pierce Transit Board, I've served on the Sound Transit Board, and I've also served as president of the Association of Washington Cities. So all of those are extracurricular activities and jobs and hours that I've spent as a City of UP council member that have also added additional things into the work that I have. So with the same stipend. So a council member could come to our regular meetings every 2 weeks and read the packet or not read the packet, and come to the meeting and at the dais and do that, and they were getting the same as I was getting with all those other things. So I believe that I put in the time, even more time, into this job. So anyone that would think that I'm doing this because of the money or because of some other reason other than serving the citizens of UP is misinformed. So a long way of saying I'm for looking at this salary thing for city council. Let the council decide, right? Not a commission, but let the council decide. Again, I won't be in the council seat when that decision is being made as far as what the salary is. However, I do want to be a part of the group that gives that future council the opportunity to decide. And that's my position. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councilmember Keel. Thank you. Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, just a few points. Just to reiterate what Councilmember Keel and others have said. We have been paying into the system for retirement, and for as long as I'm on the council, I'll continue to pay into it because, if you heard, it's irrevocable, whether or not we gain benefit from it. And so, again, I don't find there's a lot of equity in that personally, but understand. And then the city will also continue to contribute because it's irrevocable. So that match will continue as well, whether or not we benefit from it. And personally, I believe that retirement, it's not a huge amount, but it should be retained as a benefit for future council members. Again, if we were to vote on this tonight, it won't take effect for me personally for at least 2 years. I'd have to be reelected for it to take effect. And honestly, as the mayor pointed out, I believe that's the right thing. Shouldn't be able to vote on our own salary in the same election cycle. That makes sense. And finally, this is a point that the Mayor Pro Tem brought up last council meeting, and I agree with it, I think, is that the council should earn minimum wage. That's what we're talking about here. McDonald's employees and other retail people earn minimum wage because that's required by state law, and I know we're not covered under that as elected officials, but I think the work we do is at least that important. And so, as far as this goes, I would support this initial increase for council and then for a reevaluation. As far as the salary commission, I know that motion has not been made, but I think that one should be looked at in the future. I'm not really interested in looking at it tonight. I think we need a lot more information on that one before we go there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Councilmember McCluskey in just a second. Okay. I meant to ask one other question of the city attorney. Let me do that because I think it may be on other people's minds. Council has this answer, but the public doesn't. Why don't we set this to a consumer price index or some other index rather than have to do this periodically?
Because the state auditor, I believe it was the state auditor, issued an interpretation of the relevant provisions of the state constitution back in the late 1990s that is still generally regarded as persuasive, that doing so essentially violates the applicable provisions of the state constitution, where council doesn't have that setting. It delegates it to the folks who calculate the CPIU and those associated buckets.
So essentially, we don't have the authority, or it's illegal to use a index or CPI salary setting mechanism.
You actually have to set the salary.
The salary as a whole dollar amount. Excuse me, Councilmember McCluskey, I've been wanting to get that in the record, though.
That's a good point, thank you. I am a little confused, I like a clarification question. When the money is taken out for the investment and it is without a service credit, at the end, when you terminate your employment, do you get that money back? Or does the state take it and it's like, you know, SOL?
So when the money, like right now, you're not earning service credits, right? The money is still there, earning at the rate of 2.75%, being invested by the Washington State Investment Board. There's a body governing throughout the DRS system that looks after where you put it and making sure that it's in a good path towards retirement. So when somebody retires and is not vested, meaning to say you don't qualify for the vesting, which like for PERS 2 requires at least 5 years, and then you have the service credits there, you will be able to take your money, your portion, and that money goes to you when you retire. However, when you get vested, you get both your portion and the city's portion, and that's what you get for your retirement, you know. So that's the reason why there's vesting, and we encourage vesting before you retire, is that, you know, you get both portions there. Otherwise, you will just get your portion of your retirement.
Right. All right.
Does that answer your question,
Yes.
Councilmember?
And you're vested at 5 years?
For PERS 2, yes.
For PERS 2.
PERS 3 has a different vesting requirement.
It's a lifetime.
It's a lifetime.
Anything further, Councilmember McCluskey?
Oh, yes, I'm good, thank you.
All right, and Councilmember Fleming.
Mayor, before we continue, obviously this is not going to end in the next 3 minutes, 5 minutes, so I'd like to extend the meeting for another 30 minutes.
Okay, motion to extend for 30 minutes. Is there a...
Are we not going to talk about the property tax?
We certainly have every intention to, but we may have another extension here. in order
Or
to
maybe
get
a
there.
little bathroom break.
So, would you like to amend the motion to extend for a longer period?
Yes.
What
I
would,
think we need to
please feel
amend
free.
for a half an hour,
For-
minimum,
So, I'm sorry.
That's
till
what I said.
9:30.
He said 30 minutes.
Oh, did he? I thought he said 15. I'm sorry.
So, but,
Okay, I'll second.
okay, we have a second. 30 minutes is the motion.
Sorry.
To extend, all those in favor of extending for 30 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion passes, meeting's extended to 9:30. Excuse me, now, Councilmember McCluskey, you were done, we're headed to Councilmember Fleming? Okay, all right.
We're on track.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll talk for the next 30 minutes here. No. I'm just kidding. You know, I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. And one is this council salary thing with the new state law that we're dealing with is just complicated. I've picked the brains of our staff here as well as with DRS, and you never quite understand the whole picture as you go. However, you know, I wanted to say your comments were pertinent and pointed to what we're talking about tonight and spot on. And I know when we first started this conversation, the staff had alluded there were 2 council members that don't get affected by this. I know you're one, and in confession, I'm number 2. So you and I have no dog in this fight at the end of the day when we decide this. So we're really deciding on the benefit of the future council, not the current council on that. So having said that, I agree. I think it was former Mayor Klosowski who said the council salaries are generous. They are. I mean, let's face it, they're good salaries. But I think the real conversation here is on equity. And I know on Mr. Flan's comment, he was talking about the pension issue, and I understand that whole perspective also. And I don't think people go and get elected to a city council thinking this is going to be their retirement program, because if they do that, they got to serve here about 60 or 70 years, before they're going to get a decent pension out of it. But why I think it's important to pass this is, and I've shared this with council, so it's no secret, but it really is about equity. If the council votes this down, because we say we're just not going to go that pathway, regardless of that, 2 council members still get pensions, and the rest get nothing, because that's the way the law is on that threshold. And you all, staff's looking at me down there, you can correct me, but it's the mayor and mayor pro tem that will continue to be pensioned, and the rest of the council will not, or qualify for their pension, I should say. So, if we do pass it, then whoever's sitting up here in the future, 7 council members will have an opportunity to participate in that program. But it is very minuscule in terms of what they're getting. So any future council members, again, who are hoping to get a retirement pension out of this, you're going to be here a very long time before you save up enough to qualify for that. So with that said, I don't, normally I think, normally I oppose council increases, but I think for the sake of equity and keeping things on track, I don't have an issue with this one this evening. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Belisi.
My comments are going to fall on deaf ears on the dais. So I am making this strictly to the audience that is listening. Number one, Councilmember Fleming, your position is currently up for re-election. You are running unopposed, so you are going to be impacted by this in that you are getting the new pay raise. Okay, so you are getting that pay raise. You were one of 3. PERS or not is irrelevant. What we're discussing is the pay raise to qualify for PERS. Number 2, you can contribute to the system for 30 years in PERS. It's 5 years worth of vesting that qualifies you, and it's your 5 years of highest wage earning. So Councilmember Keel, you have been on council for 12 years. You have already vested yourself at your maximum amount, your maximum retirement amount in that 12-year period that you have been on if you have participated at least 5 years of those 12. So losing 2023 is not changing what your vested 5-year period is. But what concerns me is that University Place, currently without a pay raise, is one of the highest paid councils. As indicated by Ms. Klosowski, Des Moines has a similar population base, and their council gets $500. They don't even qualify for PERS, and I doubt that they ever have qualified for PERS. Maple Valley, 29,000 citizens, $750. We have 35,600 individuals, and we're getting above the average salary of $1,408. And now we're trying to convince our citizens that we are indeed worth a $375 increase to qualify for PERS. I think that's very hard given the fact that our budgets, we're going to be asking for or being reviewed and approving a looking at an increase in the transportation benefit district tax, the swim tax, and we haven't provided any meaningful recreation enhancements or programs with any budget, but yet we're willing to take money from the general fund to increase our salary. I don't know that we have qualified for that increase just in the fact that we have not met the needs or the wants of our community. And for that reason, I am not going to vote for this, nor am I in favor for a salary commission, because as I have voiced earlier in the evening, a salary commission is just a way to not take responsibility for any consideration. And if you're not willing to directly vote for it and account for it for your citizens, a salary commission is the cheesy way out. So that's my comments.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Puglisi, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, missing a lot of conversation here about what's really going on. There's been pieces and parts. Yes, the retirement, so-called retirement system service credits. By the way, let's just remind ourselves that this is a state law. It is a state law. It's not something that we can say, that wasn't fair. Maybe you need to go back to the legislature. This has been in the books for a very long time. And there was a reason. I haven't had the time to research what was the intent of the legislators when they decided that, yes, public officials should have this benefit if they have, if they meet the minimum wage, okay? It just so happens that we were fortunate enough in UP that when the first council that started this, they thought we valued ourselves enough to be meeting the minimum wage. We were just fortunate. And for me, the service credit for retirement, and it's not about the extra monies that goes in that you can't get service credits. I don't think any council members started this program so they can get a savings account with the state. They did it to get service credits for a pension that will grow, not just for 5 years after they're vested, but continuing if they continue service. That's how the game is played. And so that's what the state legislator, our state, the laws that we abide by, and that says that is something that our society wants for elected officials. So that's in the books. It's not, I don't believe that the subject matter should be that we deserve a service credit or not for retirement. That decision has already been made. We can't make that decision that we don't deserve that. That decision has been made by a much higher authority than us. It wasn't the county, it was the state. So we should just go ahead, just like a lot of many other laws that we have already bowed down to and said, that's the way it goes. And we say that to many, many people, why we actually raise taxes, the SEPA fees and other fees that we charge, because the law says so. We don't, argue that. And we shouldn't argue that we don't, we shouldn't have a service credit in retirement, because that decision is already sailed, okay? So it's really about what we value ourselves. Now, we talk about comparison to other cities. I can't speak to this is not a comparison chart about what other cities, small or large, because, excuse me, I have the floor, council member. I listened to you when you spoke. I expect the same respect from you. I think that we shouldn't compare ourselves to other cities, large or small, because they have to determine, it's about what you value yourself for. What do we value for the work that you do? And it just so happens that, and that it's not, yes, we're not, like Councilmember Wood said, we're not required to pay ourselves the minimum wage. No, that's not it. But it is a precedent in our society that people are worth something when they do something of value. That's what society have said, and there's a precedent all over the place. And no, we're not volunteers. I didn't run for as an elected official to volunteer. That's a whole different position. This is not a volunteer position. And yes, it is public service, but public service, being a public servant, and I don't like that word because it sounds like I'm a slave. I'm not no slave to anybody. I provide public service. It's what I do as a public official. And our society has said in many different ways, even people, young people that are starting off their first job, society said they deserve $16 an hour just for showing up and doing some menial jobs, not deciding about millions of dollars, public policy, laws, making laws and ordinances and resolutions, and taking care of 34,000 people, city and the public safety and the parks and everything that we know that what we're supposed to do. Is also taking care of calls at 10 o'clock at night because somebody really needs to tell you about how they feel. Being at a grocery store, not every job out there is like that. So we're always on call. Now, in most jobs, if you're on call and you do extra hours, you get paid time and a half, maybe even more. And that's even by state law. So there's a precedent of society saying you're valued for something you do. I believe that council members, public officials that do things the way we do, small or large, should value themselves at a minimum. We actually should be considering more, but at a minimum, we should at least place ourselves, our value for our time and experience and decisions that we make that we get hit for. If people don't like them, we get hit hard. We get called names. We get called, we're lying in our pockets. We get called that we're being deceitful. I mean, that's bogus. We should not be called names just because we're saying pay at least at the equivalent of what society thinks that the minimum wage is. I think that's a fair thing, and I can stand on that to anybody in this town. I don't think anybody in any position other than you volunteer that if you go to work, you're going to expect $16. By the way, it's the law, and if you don't want to, that employer or that company is going to get sued. It's going to get fined by the state. That's how serious this is. So I think that we should be at least and consider ourselves that valuable. And for those cities that don't want to see themselves that valuable or council members, that's their business. That's up to every individual council as a whole, whether they see themselves. I see myself and I see this council, every one of us, being that valuable to at least get the minimum, equivalent to a minimum hourly wage. And that's what this is really about for me, okay? And no, that's just not two council members. I'm the third. I'm already retired of the PERS system. I don't get any more service credits. This isn't about service credits for me. And actually, I wasn't even thinking about this salary thing. That's how much I really don't think, because I'm happy what I do. I'm really good at it, and I do provide a public service. But what really just put like a deer in a highway and a headlight just went and hit him is what happened to me when all of a sudden I heard out of the middle of nowhere just a couple of weeks ago that certain council members weren't getting service credits because our salaries didn't meet the minimum wage level. And I said, holy smoke. And all of a sudden that kind of just I took it hard. I really took it hard because I really said, why didn't I think? I never did the calculation. It's not like how much does the city pay me by hour and all that. That wasn't where I was at. But now that it's been brought up by the state itself, our state legislature, our state laws said, you cannot have this benefit that we created. And by the way, if you join it, and then if your salary goes out of whack, you still have to pay in, and no, you don't get the service credit. It's like breaking a contract, because it's like Mayor said, this is what most people went in for, whether they knew it or not. But once they knew and they joined the PERS system, they knew, and it was a contract to a certain degree. So I think that we should value ourselves at a minimum in that. Comparison-wise, that's up to people. When I really believe this. I believe that other council members do not see that point of how they value themselves or their peers. And when I go to AWC or I see other council members in other areas, I'm going to have that conversation. I said, why are you guys getting paid less than minimum wage? And you should at least ask for that and get it. And if an individual really doesn't believe they deserve that because they don't do enough, they don't contribute enough, or anything else, then or they just want to be charitable, give that portion that you don't think you want back to the city. You can always do that, but don't determine for other people that you're not valued. I will never want to think that you're valued less than minimum wage, or you, or you, or you. But if I thought that, then I would say, give it to you, and I would contribute back any amount that I felt that I wasn't worth for whatever reason. So that's how I see it, and I think this is a good thing for us to decide whether it's against the trend, and other council members says, what the heck, I'm going to tell them exactly what I told you folks right here in this council, in this diocese, that shame on you if you don't value yourself at least at that salary range. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. I'll make my comments brief. I think I already explained my initial concerns, and I still have those concerns, that I view this as more of a contract violation, an employment condition that didn't get, that got changed through, that has affected my fellow council members. And I will say it is very much an honor to be on this council. It's very much an honor to be the mayor of this community for the 2 years that I get to have that honor. A few more months to go, I think, unless something else happens tonight.
Better not.
But in any case, levity aside, though, it has been and continues to be an honor, and I'm happy to do that. And I know my colleagues are as well. With that, unless we want to do another round of this, I think we...
I do.
Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to belabor this, but I do feel compelled to respond to Councilmember Bellici because I think it's important to understand what motivates us to vote for or against initiatives. And I want to be crystal clear, especially to the folks that are listening. It's, running for office is a privilege. Serving on this council is a privilege. That is not the motivation why I'm running again to get an increase in salary. That happens to be the law that we are going to vote up or down. That was well spelled out. My point being earlier is that, like the mayor, we are tapped out in the PERS system, so we get no benefit out of this. My motivation is really to ensure that the future council members, those that will be replacing Councilmember Bellici and Councilmember Keel, and eventually all of us down the road, and then for those who stay on, they will too have that benefit. So my motivation is really driven totally in terms of equity and ensuring that at least there's fairness to all council members who serve after us on this council. So I really a little bit resented the fact that there was a point made that I was going to get a big benefit out of it, which I won't. But I did want to clarify for the record that that's the issue. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And I would say it's time for us to go to a roll call vote, and Amy, if you could help us with that.
Councilmember.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Keel, did you have something?
Just real quick, could you remind me and us of what's on the
Certainly.
table
So,
for being voted?
exactly, and let me turn to our city attorney if he would read the ordinance title or in some other way direct us, just to assure us what we're voting on.
The
What the
matter
motion was
before the
made.
council is the ordinance, which is included in your council packet. I lost my page. It appears in your packet at page 127, entitled "An Ordinance of the City of University Place, Washington, amending and retitling Section 320.040 of the University Place Municipal Code related to salaries for council members."
Does that answer?
And which of the two
It is not
options?
the
And
salary
Are we talking about the council one we vote, or are we talking about the salary commission?
It is
Remember,
not the
there are two.
salary commission vote.
It's number 2.
Say again?
It is not the salary commission. It is the council initiated.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Everyone clear? Okay. Good. All right. Please, Emmy.
Councilmember Keel,
Aye.
Councilmember Wood,
Aye.
Councilmember McCluskey,
No?
Councilmember Fleming,
Aye.
Councilmember Belisi,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa,
Aye.
Mayor Worthington.
Aye.
Vote result, 5 ayes, 2 noes.
Motion passes. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone wish to make another motion this evening on this subject?
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa, make a motion to table the salary commission.
There's a motion to table.
Second.
Salary Commission, second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on, oh, excuse me, tabling is a privileged motion without discussion. With that in mind, all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed?
Mayor and Council, really quickly, Friday night had a Oktoberfest celebration, which a Market Square and in the atrium, and I'd like to thank our events coordinator, Marion Holloway, the Public Works crew, and the police department, communications department. It was a team effort, and even with the inclement weather, everyone seemed to be having a good time. So, again, thanks to those individuals for putting on a great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Sugg? Apparently, nope, we're good.
No, Mayor.
All right. Well, then, let me go around the discussion horn, so to speak, one more time with Councilmember Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just as I'm winding down my tenure here, there's still not any slowdown in the work. I've attended this past week. I was in Seattle, downtown Seattle, at a AWC event, but it was Ruckels House luncheon, where we had a speaker, a woman that was a chief of staff for President Obama. She came and spoke to about, 60 or 70 elected officials in the state of Washington. Our lieutenant governor was there, as well as several other House legislative and Senate folks, as well as many other mayors and council members around the city, and some high-level corporate CEOs and that were there, and it was a great discussion. Lunch was great, and the conversation was good. So I attended that on behalf of AWC and the city. In addition, our meetings with Sound Transit are continuing. We are now, just for point of reference, we are now in the time of year that we're doing the evaluation for the CEO. This is her first year being with us, and we're doing a lot of stuff, getting consultants and contract folks to kind of help us with bringing the community in, all that stuff. So to finish that evaluation, so that work is going on now. I think there's some other things, but I'll just stop there and just say that. I do want to say that I did have a great time at the Oktoberfest. It was raining, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see the amount of folks, the really good turnout, even in the rain. I was expecting, I was being the Debbie Downer, I was expecting way less people, but when I made the corner and I saw the size of the group, I was pleasantly surprised, and my daughter Lacey is still talking about her going there and being happy. She's happy that she was able to go there, so it was a great time. Congratulations, staff. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Keel, and I'm glad to hear that Lacey was happy with the event. I was too. So, excellent. Councilmember Wood.
My only comment, Mayor, is that I enjoyed Oktoberfest. It was a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Councilmember McCluskey.
I have no comments, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be really quick. I'll just echo our city manager. I thought the Oktoberfest was a phenomenal program. Certainly shout out to Miriam Holloway from the staff who put that together and the rest of the staff that supported it. Really a huge thank you to the vendors also, and most important to the citizens of University Place that turned out en masse to support a truly great program. So I think a good time truly was had by everyone who came. Despite the rain, it was really a phenomenal program, so congrats. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilmember Releasy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, kudos to staff. I know that since Oktoberfest, I've heard nothing but positive comments about the event from numerous residents here in Town Center that really enjoyed having that activity and would actually like to see more such activities being planned for, but I think it's up to our local business community to pick up any of those types of activities. Other than that, just a reminder that the League of Women Voters is having a Zoom voters forum on Wednesday evening, October 18th, for those interested. So that's it. It starts at 7 p.m., by the way.
7 p.m. Thank you for the calendar reminder. And Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's just, again, probably the Oktoberfest. There was a lot of people I didn't know, a lot more that I didn't know that I did than the ones I did. But so I did ask just a few to introduce myself as, are you from UP? And it was interesting. It wasn't a large, survey or anything, but I think I did about 4 or 5 people. And every one of them, it just so happens, what's the luck that I would ask 4 or 5 people, and they all were from out of UP. My gut assumption would be that that's a good pulse of what maybe the majority of the crowd might be. So it attracts other folks in, and I think that's some of the things that we look at. We want our citizens to have fun and enjoy themselves with their families and without having to go to Seattle or Tacoma, but right here in their own backyard. But also, we've always said we try to do things to attract other families and other folks to come into town and enjoy themselves and see UP as it is. It's a family in a community. So thank you for everybody. Thanks for this council and making that decision to do those kind of things. And thanks for the staff for doing it at a very high level. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Let's see. So I do have several things to comment on. With that in mind, let me get to it. First off, I did have the opportunity to watch the October 2nd meeting, and I thought council, everyone did a very good job on articulating the reasoning that was in their mind with regards to the salary ordinance discussion. And I appreciated hearing those thoughts. Also, Councilmember Wood, you had mentioned about, I'm going to get it slightly wrong, thank you for taking the seat, if you will, with the Climate Action Group. I'm not sure I have the right title there, but yeah, it's a great step forward. It's a good project to be with, and you pointed out some great grant opportunities for us to keep an eye on as well. The reason I wasn't there is I was at the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors in California, and I was wearing my hat as the Rainier Communications Chair, along with being the mayor here, of course. At that event, I had a chance to talk about cable franchise changes that are pending, the Federal Communications Commission, some changes there, and a new commissioner coming on board, and just sort of get a glimpse of some of the landscape that's going on in the cable franchise side of the world, something that we get to periodically. I'll talk more about that. Perhaps, though, the real high point of all that was the awards night when our community, University Place, was up for 11 awards, and the Rainier Communications Commission was up, I think, for 30. So it was great to see that, participate in it. We're going to talk more about that soon, but not tonight. We're still waiting for the big shipment, the crate full of things to get here so we can show them off. So it takes a while to load them all up. But we'll do that in the very near future. But I wanted to give you a brief report about where I was in the absence, of course. I also wanted to mention some opportunities we have with the Association of Washington Cities. You may have noticed they are looking for folks to participate in their legislative committee. They have a couple of seat opportunities. Those that would be qualified would be elected officials and city administrator, city manager types. Certainly, we have been engaged lately, particularly over the last several years, in these issues. The AWC Legislative Committee is where many of these things get started, and they actually start quite early. So they'll start in the spring for the 2024 agenda. We're just seeing the 2024, we have the 24, what I think of now as the 2024 agenda is what they were working on in 2023. But it starts early. There's an opportunity. If council, I'm hoping that council could identify, either self-identify or in some other manner, one person that we can, on council, that we could all get behind and work, help with. But there may be more, and we can figure out a way to deal with that. But I think if we had one of us that made stepped up to that, that would be a wonderful thing. So I'm not sure anyone's ready to do that tonight, but think about that. You may have also noticed at AWC there's a couple of other interesting seats. And one is with the Transportation Improvement Board, TIB as it's referred to. There's an elected official opening there. There's also a Public Works Director opening there. They help keep control of certain grant funds. They're the doorkeeper in certain grant funds. And there's a couple of other key ones that could be of interest. So with regards to legislative piece.
Mayor, we need to extend our meeting.
We do, thank you. And so is there a motion to extend 15 minutes?
Motion to extend 15 minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of 15-minute extension, say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion passes. We're extending to 9:45. Thank you for good timing. So I wanted to, is there anyone who's interested in the legislative position or legislative committee? Councilmember Fleming, Councilmember Wood, did I see your interest there?
I would be, but I would defer to Councilmember Fleming if you would really like to do that.
All right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good. We'll work. We'll be in touch. So, excellent.
I second that motion.
Okay. Excellent.
All in favor? No, let's just get this done now.
Yeah. Well, it's not, we get to support an application to the, I guess Kent knows if it goes to the board or where it goes, but yeah, anyhow.
Yeah, it goes to the board.
Yeah. But it's nice if it's a single person from a council, we can all speak unanimously towards this is a good person, you should put him on, put her on. Cool. Does that work, Kent? Excuse me.
That does work, and I will make sure I whisper in someone's ear too as well. Former legislator at the state level too as well. I think that goes will go well.
Yep. Good. Not to drone on too much longer, but I will just for a moment. Day Island had its third meeting on preparedness that I attended with Councilmember McCluskey. This is, of course, in relation to king tides, and the focus was on being prepared and some good information and some also interesting weather information. Who knew about tidal influence and all of that? But yeah, it was very interesting. Lisa Patoric spearheaded that for us. We appreciated that. And then we had good help from our partners with West Pierce Fire and with Pierce County as well. And so appreciated those. Certainly, Oktoberfest was a great event. And I think at that, we're ready to move on to our study session. And so we'll move into study session. We'll get a chance to talk about taxes. We have 14 minutes, maybe more if we need it. Maybe.
Be quick.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Leslie Blaisdell, Finance Director. This is our annual study session related to property tax. It's a little different this year because we had the voter-approved measure. So we received our preliminary certification of assessed values and levy limit factor from Pierce County on September 12th. We'll receive final values and the certification of levies in early January. The preliminary assessed value is $6,943,989,479. This is a 1.9% decrease from last year's assessed value. The passage of our levy lid lift by voters in April sets the rate at $1.01 per 1,000 assessed value. In practice, though, we will see taxpayers paying one of two rates, depending on whether they qualify for an exemption under RCW 84-36-381. Taxpayers which qualify for this exemption will see an effective rate of 0.6864 per 1,000 AV. I did include in my memo the breakdown of the assessed value of property exempt from the lid lift. Out of that $6.9 billion number I just gave you is $62,929,828. So what we're unclear of at this point, where Matt and I are working with the county and the Department of Revenue, is what our ordinance should say. Whether we need to just be doing an ordinance saying it's $1.01 pursuant to our voters, or if we need to include language about the rate that applies to the exempt properties. And we're still working on that, and we hope to have that all wrapped up in time for the next meeting on November 6th. But I do always give us some wiggle room. If that is not resolved by November 6th, we could still push it to the second meeting in November for adoption and still meet the deadlines required by the county and the Department of Revenue for the property tax. I did include in your packet the preliminary certification of assessed values, and just note that the sample legislation is what we're working with them on now. The provided sample legislation is what they typically provide when I'm coming to council asking if you're going to implement the statutory 1% increase. But that doesn't apply to us this year because of the voter-approved measure. So we'll continue to work with the county and the Department of Revenue, and we hope to have everything buttoned down so we can bring the document to you on November 6th for council consideration.
Council, any questions?
Mayor?
Councilmember Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Leslie, thanks for your report. So I'm not clear. So before I'm used to doing the 1%, right, where we're gonna do the council amount thing for 1%. But now that we're not doing that, because of the levy lid that we just did, so what is the purpose of the document that you're talking about now that we're going to pass? What is it that we're passing since we've already got the voter-approved lift?
It's just basically an ordinance saying pursuant to our voters, the rate will be set at $1.01 per 1,000 assessed value. It's just affirming it, I guess.
Councilmember Kill, the way to look at it is essentially it's the council touch on the voter-approved measure.
Okay, so the voters already approved it. We're just saying, yeah, but they just didn't.
Yes.
Kind of like. So our vote. So our vote is not actually. Okay.
It's not the typical vote.
Okay. All right. I think I get it. It's not raising. We're not raising it to 1%. The voters already did it. We're just passing an ordinance to affirm what the voters already did.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir. That was a yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Got it. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Well, that was a different twist because I thought that it wasn't about voting on the ordinance stating that. It was about the language within the ordinance. Correct?
Right. We're trying to determine whether we only need to include the $1,
right,
or if we need to break out the two rates.
So why is it a big deal? Why can't we just be clear and say it all and not worry about it. Is there a law against that?
We're getting conflicting information from the Department of Revenue on how it needs to be worded, so we're working with the
Fair
county.
enough.
We're going to try and get all three of us together, and
Right. But no matter what, we have to pass an ordinance. Okay.
so far, that's what it
Right.
looks like.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Mayor.
Most likely, it's going to be an ordinance that the people said yes to.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. If there isn't anything else, then I'm going to, no objections, our meeting for October 16th, 2023 is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.